When Michael Jordan disappeared on the biggest day of his career, nobody knew where he'd gone. The press conference room was packed. Cameras were ready, reporters were waiting, but the world's most famous basketball player had vanished. No calls, no messages, just gone. The media went crazy. They said he was a diva. They said he didn't care about his fans. They made up wild stories about why he missed the most important press conference of the year. But 73 miles away, Michael was on his knees in the dirt. His expensive suit was covered in dust. His hands were black with grease, and he was helping a crying woman he'd never met before change a tire. She didn't know how to fix. This one choice would cost him everything. His reputation, his money, maybe even his career, but it would also teach him what being great really means. This is the true story of how a flat tire on a lonely highway changed 2 lives forever, and why the woman Michael helped that day would become the person who understood him better than anyone else in the world. The camera flashes had been firing into empty air for 17 minutes. Amanda Chen checked her watch for the 14th time, her silk blouse clinging to her back despite the air conditioning pumping through the United Center press conference room. As the Chicago Bulls director of media relations, she'd orchestrated hundreds of these events. Press conferences were her domain. Predictable, controllable, scripted down to the last syllable. But right now, her carefully constructed world was collapsing in front of 200 journalists, 47 cameras, and God knew how many millions watching the live feed. Michael Jordan was gone. Not late. Not stuck in traffic. Gone. Amanda, Steve Kerr materialized at her elbow, his voice low and urgent. Any word? She shook her head, pressing her phone harder against her ear, as another call went to voicemail. Nothing. His cell's going straight to recording. Security says he left his house 2 hours ago. Should have been here 90 minutes ago. The murmur from the assembled press was growing louder, transforming from curious to suspicious. Amanda could practically see the headlines writing themselves. She'd spent 3 years building Jordan's post-championship image, crafting the narrative of greatness with humility. One no-show could torch it all. Could he be sick? Kerr suggested, but his eyes said he didn't believe it. Michael Jordan doesn't get sick. Amanda's laugh was bitter. Michael Jordan plays with the flu and drops 38 points. Michael Jordan doesn't miss press conferences. Except he just... Jerry Krause pushed through the crowd, his face the color of raw beef. The Bulls' general manager grabbed Amanda's arm with enough force to leave marks. Where is he? I don't know. You don't know? Krause's voice rose. We've got ESPN breaking into programming. We've got the Tribune, the Sun-Times, Sports Illustrated. Every major outlet is here. We promised them Jordan after his 4th championship. We promised them the king holding court. And you're telling me you don't know where he is? Sir, I've called everyone. His agent isn't answering. His mother hasn't heard from him. His security team lost him after he left his house. Lost him? Krause's face went from red to purple. How do you lose Michael Jordan? He drives a Ferrari, for Christ's sake. A reporter from the 3rd row stood up. Amanda, can we get a statement? Is Jordan injured? Is he demanding a trade? The question triggered an avalanche. Voices overlapped. Chairs scraped. Microphones thrust forward like weapons. Is this about his contract? Did something happen to his family? Is he retiring again? Amanda raised her hands, trying to project calm she absolutely didn't feel. Ladies and gentlemen, please. We're experiencing a slight delay. 42 minutes isn't slight. Someone shouted from the back. And we're working to locate Mr. Jordan now. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. Like what? The question came from Marcus Thompson, a veteran reporter who'd covered Jordan since his rookie year. His face was skeptical but not unkind. Amanda, in 13 years, Michael Jordan has never missed a mandatory press event. Not once. Either something's seriously wrong, or he's making a statement. Which is it? Before Amanda could answer, her phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it in her haste to check. Not Jordan, his agent, Marcus Reed, finally calling back. She pressed the phone to her ear, turning away from the chaos. Marcus, thank God. Where is he? Static crackled. I don't know, Amanda. I've been calling for an hour. This isn't like him. You think I don't know that? She lowered her voice to a hiss. I've got Krauss ready to explode. I've got the national media inventing scandals by the minute, and I've got nothing to tell them. Nothing. Do you understand what this is doing to his image? His image? Marcus's laugh was sharp. Amanda, I'm worried about his safety. What if something happened? What if... Don't! She couldn't let herself go there. He's fine. He has to be fine. He's making a choice we don't understand yet. But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. Michael Jordan didn't make impulsive choices. Every move was calculated, purposeful, designed to cement his legacy as the greatest to ever play the game. Vanishing without explanation wasn't just out of character, it was impossible. Unless something was very, very wrong. Amanda turned back to face the press, squaring her shoulders. She'd built her career on spin, on finding the right words to shape any narrative. But standing in front of those cameras, watching doubt and speculation bloom like poison in the room, she realized she had nothing. No explanation, no excuse, no story. Just a podium where a legend should have been, and the sickening certainty that when the truth finally came out, nothing would ever be the same. 73 miles away, on a forgotten stretch of Interstate 57, Michael Jordan knelt in the gravel beside a rusted Honda Civic, his $3,000 suit covered in road dust, helping a crying woman he'd never met change a tire she didn't know how to fix. And for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about basketball at all. 6 hours earlier, Elena Vasquez's alarm clock screamed at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before it was supposed to. She'd forgotten to turn off yesterday's early setting, and the mistake felt like a personal failure. One more thing she couldn't keep straight in a life held together with duct tape and prayers. She slapped the clock silent and lay in the darkness of her bedroom, listening to the sounds of her falling apart world. The refrigerator hummed and rattled, the compressor was dying, maybe 2 weeks left. The bathroom faucet dripped with its endless, expensive rhythm, and through the paper-thin walls of their apartment, Mrs. Chen's television blared the morning news in Cantonese, too loud because the woman was too proud to admit she was going deaf. Elena closed her eyes and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of self-pity. 30 seconds to wish she was someone else, someone whose car didn't make that grinding noise, someone whose daughter didn't need $400 heart medication every month, someone whose ex-husband hadn't decided that fatherhood was too much pressure and vanished to Phoenix with his new girlfriend and their joint savings account. 30 seconds. Then she got up because her patience didn't wait for her to feel sorry for herself, and neither did the bills stacked on the kitchen counter. The apartment was dark except for the nightlight in the hallway, shaped like a butterfly, Iris's favorite. Elena moved quietly past her daughter's room, peeking through the cracked door. Iris was sprawled across her twin bed, one arm thrown over Miss Patches, the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. Her chest rose and fell in the steady rhythm that Elena checked for every single morning. The rhythm that meant her daughter's damaged heart was still fighting, still beating, still keeping her baby alive for another day. In the kitchen, Elena made instant coffee because the coffee maker had broken last month, and she couldn't justify replacing it. She took her pills, the generic antidepressants that barely touched the darkness, but were better than nothing, and reviewed the day ahead. Her shift at Mercy General's hospice unit started at 7 a.m. 8 hours there, holding dying hands and pretending she had infinite compassion when her own reserves were dust. Then she had exactly 45 minutes to pick up Iris from after-school care before the late fees kicked in, fees she absolutely could not afford. After that, she'd promised her mother she'd bring groceries. Her mother, who lived in the same building on her fixed income, who helped with Iris when Elena worked doubles, who was too proud to ask for help but whose cupboards Elena knew were empty. And tonight, if Iris's fever stayed down, if her mother didn't need anything else, if Elena could keep her eyes open, she had to study for her RN licensing exam.
I had to.
The test was in 3 weeks, and passing meant a salary bump from 42. It meant Iris's medications without juggling which bills to pay late. It meant maybe, possibly, keeping their heads above water instead of slowly drowning. Elena gulped her coffee, burned her tongue and checked her phone. 3 missed texts from her supervisor, Patricia. "Can you come in early?" Marjorie called in sick. "Elena? We're short-staffed." "Really need you." "Never mind. Got someone. See you at Relief and guilt warred in her chest. Relief that she didn't have to scramble. Guilt that she felt relief when her patients needed her. At 5:30, her mother knocked their morning ritual. Elena let her in, and Rosa Mendoza shuffled to Iris's room in her slippers, ready to get her granddaughter ready for school. The woman was 72 and had arthritis that made her hands look like gnarled tree branches, but she never complained. "You look tired, Mija," Rosa said in Spanish, touching Elena's cheek. "I'm always tired, Mama. When's the last time you ate a real meal?" Elena couldn't remember. "I'll grab something at work." Lies. But Rosa smiled sadly, kissed her cheek, and waved her toward the door. "Go. Be careful, that car of yours sounds sick." The car. Elena's 1989 Honda Civic had 27,000 miles on it and the mechanical sympathy of a dying animal. It coughed to life in the parking lot, belching blue smoke. She'd been saving for repairs, $60 tucked in an envelope marked care hidden in her underwear drawer. At this rate, she'd have enough for a new transmission sometime around Iris's high school graduation. The drive to Mercy General usually took 35 minutes, 40 in traffic. Elena kept the radio off to save battery and drove with the windows down because the AC had stopped working in July. The September morning was cool enough that she didn't mind. She mentally reviewed her patients. Miss Kowalowski in 304. Maybe 3 days left. Mrs. Patterson in 311, who'd been saying goodbye to her children for a week but kept hanging on. Young Daniel Torres in 307, only 26. Leukemia, parents destroyed. She was thinking about Daniel, about how to help his mother accept the inevitable when her phone rang. Patricia again. Elena answered on Bluetooth, the one luxury she'd allowed herself because talking while driving was dangerous. "Hey, Patricia. I'm almost..." "Elena, I'm so sorry. Marjorie's not coming in at all. Food poisoning. I need you to cover her shift too." Elena's heart sank. A double shift meant 16 hours. Meant not seeing Iris until bedtime. Meant late fees at after-school care she couldn't afford. "Patricia, I can't. My daughter..." I know, and I wouldn't ask if we had anyone else. But it's just you and Teresa today, and we've got 11 patients who need round-the-clock care. Mr. Kowalowski's family is coming to say goodbye. Mrs. Patterson finally agreed to morphine. And Daniel's priest is coming for last rites. Elena's throat tightened. Daniel. Sweet Daniel, who'd shown her pictures of his girlfriend, who'd made plans for a wedding he'd never have. When does his priest arrive? 2 o'clock. Iris got out of school at 3. Elena did the math, calculating drive times and goodbyes and the impossible logistics of being in 2 places at once. "I can stay until 3:30. That's the absolute latest. Thank you. God, Elena, thank you. I'll authorize overtime. Overtime meant time and a half. Meant maybe an extra $80 after taxes. Meant maybe catching up on the electric bill. Okay, I'll figure it out. She hung up and immediately called her mother, explaining the situation. Rosa, bless her, didn't hesitate. I'll get Iris. We'll make dinner together. You do what you need to do, Mija. Those people need you. Elena's eyes burned with tears she couldn't afford to shed. Mama, your hand. My hands are fine. Go be an angel for the dying. I'll be a Bella for the living. The call ended. Elena exhaled slowly, recalculating her day. She'd make it work. She always made it work. The sound was like a gunshot. The Honda lurched violently to the right. Elena's hands clenched the wheel, her heart jackhammering as the car shuddered and pulled. The steering wheel fought her. Rubber screamed against asphalt. She managed to guide the dying vehicle onto the shoulder of I-57, gravel spitting, the car finally shuddering to a stop. For 10 seconds, Elena just sat there, shaking. Then she got out and saw the front passenger tire, shredded to ribbons, the metal rim resting on the asphalt like a broken bone. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Please God, no. She checked her phone, 6:23 a.m. 37 minutes until her shift started. She was 15 miles from the hospital on a deserted stretch of highway with cornfields on both sides and no buildings in sight. Her phone battery. She pulled up Patricia's number, hands trembling, but stopped. If she called in now, if she said she couldn't make it because of car trouble, she'd be the nurse who couldn't handle double shifts. The unreliable one. The one they'd think twice about before offering overtime, in a hospital that was always understaffed, that was a death sentence for job security. She could call AAA. Except she'd let her membership lapse because it was $220 a year she couldn't justify. She could call her mother and say what? Her mother didn't drive, had no one to ask for help. Elena stood on the side of the highway as the sun rose over the cornfields, and for the first time in 3 years of holding it together, she felt herself breaking. She opened her trunk with shaking hands. The spare tire was there, along with a jack she'd never used and a lug wrench that looked medieval. Her father had shown her how to change a tire once, when she was 16, 20 years, and a lifetime ago. Elena knelt in the gravel in her scrubs, ruining her only clean pair, and tried to remember how the jack worked. 3 cars passed. None of them stopped. She got the jack positioned maybe, and tried to loosen the lug nuts. They wouldn't budge. She stood on the wrench, using her full body weight. Nothing. The nuts had probably been on there for a decade, rusted into place by Chicago winters and neglect. Her phone, 2% battery. Her watch, 19 minutes until her shift. 19 minutes until she failed her patients, failed her daughter, failed the precarious life she'd built from nothing. Elena looked down the empty highway and did something she almost never did. She cried, not pretty tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. She cried for her daughter's damaged heart and her own empty bank account. She cried for her disappeared husband and her dying patients. She cried for being 34 and so tired, she sometimes forgot what hope felt like. And then, through her tears, she heard an engine slowing. Elena looked up, wiping her face with her sleeve, expecting another car that would speed back up when they saw her. Instead, a red Ferrari pulled onto the shoulder 30 feet ahead of her. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, looking back at her with an expression of concern. Elena's first thought was, "I'm about to be murdered." Her second thought was, "At least Iris will get my life insurance." Her third thought, as the man walked closer and she saw his face clearly for the first time, was, Why does he look so familiar? Need some help? The man asked, and his voice was kind. Michael Jordan had been awake since 4 a.m., which wasn't unusual. Sleep had become complicated after his father died. Some nights he got 6 hours, most nights 4. The worst nights he'd lie awake until dawn, replaying the phone call that shattered his world. "Mr. Jordan, there's been an incident. Your father, James Jordan, shot to death in his Lexus on Highway 74 in North Carolina. Murdered during a roadside robbery by 2 kids who wanted his car and his rings. Left alone in the darkness while his killers drove away in his vehicle, laughing." Michael had learned the details despite trying not to. How his father had probably died slowly. How he'd been alone. How help had been so close just off the next exit, but no one had stopped. No one had checked. His father had died alone on the side of a highway, and that fact had carved itself into Michael's soul like initials in wet concrete. After that, Michael couldn't drive past stranded cars anymore. Couldn't see someone broken down on the shoulder without his chest tightening, without seeing his father's face, without thinking, what if someone had stopped? What if someone had helped? His security team hated it. His agent had lectured him about liability and PR risks. What if it's a setup? What if someone's trying to hurt you, or sue you, or sell a story to the tabloids? Michael understood their concerns. He did, but he also understood that his father had died alone, and he'd never let someone else's father, someone else's mother, sister, daughter suffer the same fate if he could help it. This morning, he'd left his house at 5:30 for an early workout before the press conference at 10 a.m. The press conference celebrating his 4th championship, the one that cemented his legacy as the greatest to ever play the game. Amanda Chen had briefed him yesterday, 30 minutes of questions, focus on the team's accomplishments, deflect anything about potential retirement. Smile for the cameras, remind everyone why they loved him. Michael had nodded and agreed to all of it, even though lately he'd been wondering who they loved, the real him, or the image they'd created. Michael Jordan, the brand, Air Jordan. His airness. The guy who sold shoes and soft drinks and the American dream wrapped in a Bulls uniform. Sometimes he missed being Mike. Just Mike. The kid from Wilmington who loved the game because it was pure, because it was real, because when you stepped on the court, none of the other bullshit mattered. He was thinking about this, about legacy and image and what it meant to be great, when he saw the Honda Civic on the shoulder of I-57, its hazard lights blinking weakly in the morning sun. Michael's foot eased off the gas instinctively. He could see someone kneeling beside the car. A woman, it looked like, in light blue scrubs. As he got closer, he saw her shoulders shaking. She was crying. Something in Michael's chest cracked open. He checked his rearview mirror, no one behind him, and pulled onto the shoulder ahead of her car. His phone immediately buzzed. Marcus, his agent, calling for the 3rd time this morning. Michael silenced it. He got out of the Ferrari, acutely aware of how absurd he must look. 6'6" in a tailored suit that cost more than that Honda was worth, stepping onto a gravel shoulder like he was walking onto a red carpet. The woman looked up as he approached, and Michael saw her face clearly for the first time. Latina, maybe mid-30s, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of exhaustion so deep it had become permanent. Her scrubs were covered in dust and grease. Her hands were scraped and bleeding from trying to loosen lug nuts that clearly hadn't budged. But it was her expression that stopped him. Not hope, not relief, just resignation. Like she'd used up all her prayers and was fresh out of miracles. "Need some help?" Michael asked, keeping his voice gentle, non-threatening. She stared at him for a long moment, and he realized she was trying to determine if he was dangerous. Smart woman, alone on a highway with a strange man approaching. Michael stayed where he was, giving her space. A voice cracked. She cleared her throat. I have a flat tire. The spare's in the trunk, but I can't get the lug nuts off. I've been trying for 20 minutes. She said it like she was confessing failure. Like not being able to loosen rusted metal was a personal moral deficiency. Let me take a look, Michael said. I'm pretty good with this stuff. That was a lie. He was adequate at best. But he'd figure it out because this woman needed help and his press conference could wait. He walked to the tire and crouched down, examining it. Completely shredded. She'd been lucky or unlucky, depending on perspective, that it had blown on a straight stretch rather than in traffic. You hit something, he asked. I don't know. It just exploded. Her voice was steadier now, but still threaded with panic. I have to get to work. I'm already late. I'm never late. I have patients who... She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. It's okay, Michael said, meaning it. He picked up the lug wrench she'd been wrestling with and tried the first nut. Didn't budge. He put his weight into it, leveraging his size. Still nothing. See? The woman's voice was bitter. I told you. They won't move. Michael stood, thinking. He'd need better leverage, or WD. His phone buzzed again. He pulled it out. Amanda Chen this time. The press conference was in 2 hours. He was supposed to be at the arena for prep in 45 minutes. Michael looked at the phone, looked at the woman in her ruined scrubs, tears drying on her cheeks, bleeding hands clenched at her sides. He put the phone away without answering. What's your name? He asked. She blinked, surprised by the question. Elena Vasquez. I'm Mike, he said, extending his hand. She shook it hesitantly. Elena, I'm going to be honest with you. These lug nuts are seized. We could eventually get them off, but it's going to take time you don't have. When do you need to be at work? 7. I'm a hospice nurse at Mercy General. She checked her watch and her face crumpled. It's 6:47. I'm already late. Hospice nurse. Michael felt something shift in his chest. His father had died before reaching a hospital, but others had been there for people's final moments. People like Elena, holding hands, offering comfort when families couldn't be there. Here's what we're going to do, Michael said. I'm going to drive you to work. We'll call a tow truck from the road, get your car to a shop. They'll fix it properly, and you can pick it up after your shift. Elena stared at him. I can't ask you to do that. You're clearly on your way somewhere important. She gestured at his suit. Nothing more important than getting a hospice nurse to her patients, Michael said, and he meant it with an intensity that surprised him. But you don't know me. I could be anyone. This could be a scam? Michael smiled. You're not a very good scammer. Too much actual crying. Plus, your hands are really bleeding. That's commitment to a con that seems excessive. Despite everything, Elena laughed. It was a small sound. Broken, but real. Come on, Michael said, gesturing to the Ferrari. Let's get you to work. Elena looked at her Honda, then at him, then at the hospital that was 15 miles away. Michael could see her doing the calculation, weighing pride against necessity, independence against desperation. Okay, she finally said. Thank you. God, thank you. I'll pay you back for the tow. We'll figure it out later. Right now we drive. They walked to his car. Elena stopped when she saw it clearly, really saw it for the first time. This is a Ferrari. Yeah, you drive a Ferrari and you stop to help me change a tire. My dad taught me that cars don't make you a good person. Stopping does. Elena looked at him for a long moment, and Michael had the uncomfortable sensation of being truly seen for the first time in years. Not looked at. Your dad sounds like he was a good man, she said quietly. He was. Michael's throat tightened. He was. They got into the car. Elena sat carefully, like she was afraid she might break something with her dusty, bloody hands. Michael started the engine, and it roared to life with a sound that probably cost more than Elena made in a month. As they pulled back onto the highway, Michael glanced at her. She was staring straight ahead, hands folded in her lap, jaw tight with determination not to cry again. "Tell me about your patients," Michael said. "The ones you're worried about." Elena turned to him, surprised. "Why?" "Because you clearly care about them. And I have 15 miles to get to know the woman I'm driving into work." He smiled. "Plus I'm nosy." Another small laugh. "Okay. There's Mr. Kowalski. He's 83, lung cancer. He's been fighting for 3 weeks to stay alive until his daughter could get here from Germany. She landed yesterday. So he can let go now. So he can say goodbye properly. He's been waiting, just waiting to tell her he loves her one more time." Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His father hadn't gotten to say goodbye, hadn't gotten those last words. A traffic stop turned deadly, and James Jordan's last words to his son had been about a golf game they'd planned for the following week. "That's beautiful," Michael said, his voice rough, "that he waited for her." "It is. And it's heartbreaking, because she'll have to watch him die, and she'll carry that forever." They drove in silence for a moment. Then Elena spoke again, softer. "There's also Daniel, he's 26. Leukemia. His priest is coming today for last rites." Her voice broke. "He should be planning a wedding, having babies, living. Instead, he's dying, and I'm holding his hand while he's terrified." Michael heard his father's voice in his memory. "Real character shows up when nobody's watching, son. When it costs you something. That's when you learn who you really are." "You show up for him," Michael said. "That's what matters. You're there." "I'm there," Elena echoed, "but it never feels like enough." They took the exit for Mercy General. Elena directed him through the streets, and Michael could feel her tension ratcheting up as they got closer. "I'm going to get written up for being late," she said. "I'm never late. I'm the reliable one. But my car breaks down and suddenly She stopped herself. "Sorry. You already helped more than I had any right to ask." "You didn't ask, I offered." Michael pulled into the hospital parking lot. "Elena, what time do you get off today?" "I'm working a double until 11 tonight. 16 hours. This woman was about to work 16 hours after breaking down on the side of the road, after crying in the gravel, after bleeding trying to fix her car herself. Michael reached into his wallet and pulled out his business card, the personal one, not the corporate one. His private number was on it, the one only family and close friends had. "For the tow truck," he said, handing it to her. "They'll probably need to coordinate with you about the repairs. And if Iris ever needs anything..." Elena's head snapped toward him. "How do you know my daughter's name?" Michael froze. He didn't. Why had he said that? Then he realized the phone call with her mother. He'd overheard Elena mention her daughter through the Bluetooth, but saying it out loud made it weird, made it sound like he'd been paying too much attention. "You mentioned her," he said quickly. "On the phone in your car. With your mother, I think?" The Bluetooth was on. "I wasn't trying to listen, It's okay." Elena's face softened. "Yes, Iris. She's 8. She has a heart condition, a ventricular septal defect. We're managing it, but..." She trailed off, and Michael heard all the things she didn't say. "We're barely managing. The medications cost everything. I'm terrified every single day." "If she ever needs anything," Michael repeated more firmly. "I mean it. Medical stuff, rides, whatever. Call me." Elena looked at the card, then at him, her eyes shining. "Why are you being so kind to a stranger?" "Because my father died alone. Because someone needs to hold people's hands. Because you're breaking yourself into pieces to help dying people, and somebody should help you. Because we're not strangers anymore, Michael said instead. We're people who helped each other. That's something. Elena smiled, a real smile, the first one he'd seen. It transformed her face, made her look younger, less burdened. Thank you, Mike, she said, opening the door. Really? You saved my life today. Just got you to work on time. Same thing. She got out, then turned back. Mike? I still don't know your last name. Michael hesitated. Once she knew, everything would change. She'd treat him differently. Everyone always did. Jordan, he said finally. Michael Jordan. Elena's eyes widened. Her mouth opened. Recognition crashed across her face like a wave. Oh my God, you're the basketball. Just Mike, he interrupted gently. Today, I'm just Mike, who helped you with a tire. Elena nodded slowly, still processing. Okay, just Mike. She glanced down at her scrubs, at the grease and dust and blood, at the Ferrari that probably cost more than her annual salary. I feel like I should be embarrassed, crying in front of Michael Jordan. Don't be, I'm the one who should be embarrassed. I couldn't get those lug nuts off either. She laughed again, and the sound made something warm bloom in Michael's chest. Go, he said, your patients are waiting. Elena nodded, clutching his card like it was valuable. She started to walk away, then turned back one more time. Mike? Your dad would be proud of you for stopping. The words hit Michael like a physical blow. His eyes burned. He couldn't speak. Elena must have seen his reaction because she gave him a small wave and hurried toward the hospital entrance, her ruined scrubs and bleeding hands marking her as someone who'd fought her own battle that morning and survived. Michael sat in his car, watching her disappear through the automatic doors. Then he looked at his phone. 7:12 a.m. 23 missed calls, 17 text messages. The press conference was in less than 3 hours, and he was sitting in a hospital parking lot, throat tight with emotion over a woman he'd just met. His father's voice echoed in his head. Real character shows up when nobody's watching. Nobody was watching right now. Just Michael, alone in his car, making a choice. He started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, but he didn't head toward the United Center. Instead, he drove aimlessly, letting the city pass by, thinking about hospice nurses and dying fathers and strangers who became something more when you showed up for them. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about basketball at all. And when Amanda Chen's call came through again, urgent, angry, desperate, Michael silenced his phone completely and kept driving. Some things were more important than press conferences. Some moments were more important than legacy. And sometimes, showing up for one person meant letting down thousands of others. Michael was finally okay with that. Michael drove north on Lakeshore Drive with no destination in mind, watching the morning sun turn Lake Michigan into liquid silver. His phone vibrated constantly on the passenger seat, the seat where Elena had sat just minutes ago, careful not to touch anything with her dusty clothes, apologizing for existing in his space. He thought about that. How quickly she'd apologized. How she'd tried to minimize her needs, make herself smaller, less burdensome. How many times in her life had Elena Vasquez learned that asking for help was dangerous, that needing people meant being disappointed? His phone screen lit up again. Amanda Chen. 6th call. Michael picked it up, stared at her name, then set it back down. He'd deal with the consequences. Right now, he needed to understand what had just happened, why a 20-minute encounter with a stranger had cracked something open inside him that he'd kept carefully sealed since his father's funeral. The truth was, he'd been numb for 2 years, going through motions, playing basketball with the same intensity, winning championships, saying the right things to cameras. But underneath, Nothing. Just a hollow space where his father used to be, where certainty used to live. James Jordan had been Michael's compass. The man who kept him grounded when fame threatened to consume him, who reminded him that basketball was a game, not a religion, that being the best player didn't make you the best person. And then he was gone, murdered for a car and some jewelry, left alone on a dark highway while help drove past, while the world kept spinning, while his son was signing endorsement deals and smiling for magazines. The guilt had been crushing. Michael had bought his father that car, had given him those rings, his success, his fame, his money. They'd painted a target on his father's back. And when James Jordan needed help, when he was dying alone in the darkness, no one had stopped. So Michael stopped. For everyone. The elderly man with the smoking engine, the college kid with the blown tire, the family with the overheated minivan. He stopped and he helped. And he never told anyone because it wasn't about good press or image management. It was about the fact that his father had died alone. And Michael couldn't fix that, but he could make sure someone else's father didn't. Someone else's mother. Like Elena, Michael thought about her face when she'd realized who he was. That moment of shock, of recalibration, when he'd stopped being helpful stranger and became Michael Jordan. He'd hated that moment, hated watching her expression change, watching her suddenly wonder if his kindness had strings attached, if this was some celebrity stunt, if she needed to be grateful in a different, more performative way. That's why he'd said, "Just Mike" today, because he missed being just Mike. The person his father had raised. The kid who loved the game before it became a brand. His phone rang again. This time it was Marcus Reed, his agent. Michael answered. "Where the hell are you?" Marcus didn't bother with pleasantries. "Driving." "Driving where?" "Amanda's losing her mind. Krause is threatening to fine you. The press is inventing scandals as we speak." "What happened? Are you injured? Is it your family?" "I'm fine." "Everyone's fine." "Then why aren't you at the United Center? The press conference starts in 90 minutes. We need you there in 30 for prep." Michael watched a jogger running along the lakefront path, earbuds in, lost in their own world. He envied that simplicity. "I'm not coming, Marcus." Silence. Then, "What?" "I'm not coming to the press conference. I need you to cancel it." "Michael, we can't cancel. This isn't a small event. This is national coverage. This is ESPN breaking into programming. This is..." "I know what it is." Michael's voice was calm. "And I'm still not coming." "Why?" Marcus's voice pitched higher. "Give me one good reason why you'd blow off the biggest media event of the year. One reason that makes sense." Michael thought about Elena's bleeding hands, about Mr. Kowalski waiting to say goodbye to his daughter, about Daniel, 26 years old, receiving his last rites, about Iris, 8 years old, with a broken heart and a mother who worked herself to dust, trying to keep her alive. "Because I helped someone who needed help more than I need good press," Michael said quietly, "and I'm not going to parade that person's private struggle in front of cameras to justify my choice." "Michael, listen to yourself. You're destroying years of careful image management over what? Helping someone with a flat tire? That's admirable, truly, but you could have called roadside assistance. You could have sent security. You didn't have to personally..." "Yes, I did." Michael's voice was firm. "I absolutely did. And I'd do it again. Every single time." Marcus made a frustrated sound. "Fine. Okay. You helped someone. That's great. Now come to the press conference and we'll figure out a statement that explains." "No statement. No explanation. This isn't about spin." "Everything is about spin. You're not just a player anymore, Michael. You're a brand. You're Air Jordan. I'm a person, Michael interrupted, who made a choice, and I'm not apologizing for it. Another pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was different. Less agent, more friend. Mike, what's really going on? This isn't like you. You're always professional. You've never missed a mandatory event. Talk to me. Michael pulled into a parking lot overlooking the lake and put the car in park. He watched the water, the waves, the endless horizon. My father died alone, he said finally. On the side of a highway. People drove past him. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they had important places to be. And he died alone because no one thought his life was worth 20 minutes of their time. Mike, Marcus's voice softened. This morning, I met a woman who's holding herself together with willpower and prayer. She's a hospice nurse, sits with dying people, holds their hands so they don't die alone like my father did. Her car broke down. She was crying on the side of the road, and 3 cars passed her before I stopped. 3 cars saw her and decided she wasn't worth the inconvenience. But you stopped. Of course I stopped. How could I not stop? Michael's voice cracked. How could I drive past someone in need and still look at myself in the mirror? Still claim my father's death meant something? Still pretend I'm a good person? You are a good person, Mike. Then I need to act like it. Even when it costs me. Especially when it costs me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The press is going to crucify you. You know that, right? They're going to say you're demanding a trade or fighting with Kraus or having some kind of breakdown. They're going to make this ugly. Let them. You're really willing to take that hit to your reputation, to your brand. Michael thought about Elena's small smile when he'd made her laugh, about her saying, "Your dad would be proud of you," about the way genuine human connection felt after 2 years of numbness. My reputation will survive, Michael said. And if it doesn't, if people decide I'm a diva or a problem because I chose a person over a press conference, then maybe my reputation isn't worth protecting. He could practically hear Marcus rubbing his temples, calculating damage control, running through crisis management scenarios. I can't talk you out of this, Marcus asked finally. No, fine. I'll handle Amanda and Kraus. But Mike? You owe that nurse everything because she just cost you about 10 million in future endorsement leverage. Michael smiled. She doesn't owe me anything. I owe her. For what? For reminding me what matters. They hung up. Michael sat in his car, watching the lake, feeling something he hadn't felt in 2 years. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother, Dolores. "Baby," Amanda called me worried. "Are you okay?" Michael typed back, "I'm better than okay, Mom. I helped someone today. Really helped them. Dad would have done the same thing." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Your father would be so proud, baby. So am I. Don't let them make you doubt that." Michael closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. His mother understood. She always understood. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. "Mike? This is Elena. I'm sorry to bother you. The hospital just called. My car needs a new tire, and they can't find a spare that fits my model. It's going to take 3 days to order one. I can't miss 3 days of work. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry to ask, but do you know anyone who might have a car I could borrow? Or could loan me money for a rental? I'll pay you back, I promise. I'm just so sorry to bother you with this." Michael read the message twice. 3 days without a car, for a single mother working double shifts. That was a catastrophe. Elena would lose her job, would fall behind on bills, would spiral further into the debt that was already drowning her. He could just send money. wire her enough for a rental car and repairs, keep his distance, check the good deed box, and move on with his life. But that wasn't showing up, that was throwing money at a problem to make himself feel better. His father's voice. Real character shows up when nobody's watching. Michael made a decision that would complicate his life in ways he couldn't yet imagine. He typed, "Don't rent a car. I'll pick you up after your shift." 11 p.m. Right. We'll figure this out together. The response came immediately. "I can't ask you to do that. You've already done so much." Michael smiled and typed, "You didn't ask. I offered. See you at..." He put his phone away and started the car. He'd go home, change clothes, maybe work out, try to clear his head before the inevitable media storm. Amanda would schedule another press conference, probably tomorrow. Marcus would prepare statements. Krause would lecture him about professionalism. And Michael would accept it all, because for the first time since his father died, he'd made a choice that had nothing to do with basketball or brand management or public image. He'd made a choice that would have made James Jordan proud. That was worth more than any championship. As he drove home, Michael thought about Elena's question. "Why are you being so kind to a stranger?" The answer was complex. Because his father had died alone. Because kindness was the only antidote to a world that kept taking people too soon. Because basketball was just a game, but humanity was everything. But the simple answer, the one his father would have given, was this: because we're all just people trying to make it through the day. And sometimes, showing up for someone means more than any trophy ever could. Michael Jordan was finally learning what his father had always known. Legacy isn't built in press conferences. It's built on the side of highways, in hospital parking lots, in small moments of choosing people over everything else. And he was finally, after 2 years of numbness, ready to build that legacy the right way. The first message Amanda Chen sent after Michael finally turned his phone back on was a single sentence: "You just ended your career." The second was longer: "Press conference is rescheduled for tomorrow, 10 a.m. You will be there. Jerry wants you in his office at 8. This is not optional. Whatever crisis you're having, we fix it tonight." The third wasn't a message at all, it was a link to ES. Michael clicked it, already knowing it would be bad. The headline made his stomach drop: "Missing Michael Jordan vanishes hours before championship press conference, team scrambles for answers." Below it a subheadline: "Sources say Jordan unreachable, speculation mounts about possible trade demand or contract dispute." Michael scrolled through the article, watching his absence get dissected like a crime scene. Anonymous sources close to the team suggested he was angry about contract negotiations. Others whispered about tension with Krause. A former teammate, who clearly had an axe to grind, told reporters that Jordan's ego had finally eclipsed his professionalism. The comment section was worse. Thousands of people who'd never met him, who didn't know him, declaring him a diva, a problem, a has-been who thought he was bigger than the game. This is what happens when you give someone too much power. Jordan thinks he's untouchable. Lost all respect for him today. You don't disrespect the game like that. Probably drunk somewhere. His dad's death messed him up. Someone needs to stage an intervention. That last one made Michael's hands shake. They were using his father's murder to explain away behavior they didn't understand, weaponizing his grief for hot takes and engagement metrics. He closed the browser and sat in his living room. The mansion he'd bought with basketball money, filled with things that were supposed to represent success, but mostly just represented emptiness. Championship trophies lined one wall, endorsement plaques covered another, but it all felt hollow now, like set dressing for a life that wasn't quite real. His phone rang. His mother. "Hi Mom. Baby, I just saw the news." Dolores Jordan's voice was tight with concern. "They're saying terrible things." "I know. Are you okay?" Michael thought about that question. Was he okay? He'd just torched years of carefully managed reputation. He'd cost himself endorsement leverage, possibly millions of dollars. He'd made himself the story instead of the championship. By any objective measure, he'd made a catastrophic professional mistake. But sitting there thinking about Elena's grateful smile, about the way her whole body had relaxed when he'd offered to drive her, thinking about doing something that mattered more than basketball, he realized something surprising.
Yeah, Mum, I think I actually am okay.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan. She used his full name, which meant she was serious. Tell me the truth. What happened today? So he did. He told her about seeing Elena on the highway, about his father's death making it impossible to drive past anyone in need, about their conversation, about her being a hospice nurse who held dying people's hands. He told her about the text message asking for help, about his decision to pick Elena up after her shift instead of just sending money. When he finished, his mother was quiet for a long moment. Your father, she finally said, voice thick, would have done exactly the same thing. Michael's throat tightened. I know. And he would have taken the heat for it too. Just like you're about to. I can handle it. I know you can, baby. But you shouldn't have to handle it alone. She paused. Have you talked to your brothers? To your sister? Not yet. Call them, they'll understand. And Michael? Don't let them make you apologize for being a good man. Don't let them spin this into something it's not. Mom, Marcus says I need to do damage control. A statement, an explanation. Do you feel like you did something wrong? No. Then there's nothing to apologize for. You helped someone who needed help. You chose humanity over publicity. That's not a scandal. That's character. After they hung up, Michael sat with those words. That's character. His father had always said that character was what you did when nobody was watching, when there was no reward, when it cost you something. Well, this was costing him plenty, and everyone was watching now. His phone buzzed with a text from Scottie Pippen. Dude, what TTF happened? You okay? Michael typed back. Long story, I'm fine. Jerry's losing his mind. Says you embarrassed the organization. Jerry can deal with it. Want me to tell the guys anything? Michael hesitated, then typed, tell them I did what I had to do. They can judge me or trust me. Their choice. Pippen responded immediately. I trust you, man, always. Whatever you need. That message meant more than Michael expected. He sent back a simple, thanks, brother. The afternoon crawled by. Michael tried to distract himself with a workout, but his home gym, state-of-the-art, expensive enough to be obscene, just reminded him of the privilege he lived in while Elena Vasquez bled trying to change her own tire. He thought about her all afternoon, about the way she'd apologized for existing in his space, about her daughter Iris with the heart condition, about medical bills that crushed a nurse who spent her days caring for others. The American healthcare system was broken. Michael knew that intellectually, the way you know facts that don't touch your life. He had the best insurance money could buy. He could afford any treatment, any specialist, any emergency. But Elena, she was one crisis away from losing everything, and she was the one holding dying people's hands, providing care, showing up when it mattered most. The injustice of it burned in his chest. At 6 p.m. Marcus Reed showed up at Michael's house unannounced. He looked exhausted, his usually perfect suit rumpled, his tie loosened. We need to talk, Marcus said, brushing past Michael into the house. I already told you my position. I know. And now I need to tell you the consequences. Marcus dropped his briefcase on the kitchen counter. Nike's concerned, McDonald's is concerned. Gatorade called asking what's going on. Every single one of your endorsement partners wants reassurance that you're not having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown. I know that. You know that. But they're seeing you, Miss the biggest press conference of the year with no explanation, no apology, just silence. That makes them nervous. Nervous makes them pull contract. Let them. Michael's voice was flat. Marcus stared at him. You're serious? I'm serious. If they want to drop me because I helped someone in need, then I don't want to represent their brand anyway. Michael, we're talking about your livelihood. No, we're talking about my basketball salary. I'll be fine. I'm already fine. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? Marcus's frustration boiled over. Help me understand, because from where I'm sitting, you're throwing away everything we've built over a stranger with a flat tire. Her name is Elena. Michael's voice was quiet but firm. And she's not a stranger anymore. She's a person who needed help, who I was in a position to help, and who reminded me that there are things more important than brand management. Marcus sat down heavily on a bar stool. You really think this is what your father would want? For you to sabotage your career? Michael felt anger flash hot in his chest. Don't use my father to manipulate me. I'm not. You are. You're suggesting that honoring his memory by helping people is somehow betraying his legacy. But my father's legacy isn't my basketball career. It's the way he treated people. The way he showed up. The way he taught me that being great at something doesn't mean anything if you're not good to people. Marcus rubbed his face. Okay, I hear you. But Mike, you can be good to people and still show up to press conferences. You can help this Elena woman and still manage your public image. It doesn't have to be either or. This morning it was either or. I could drive her to work or make the press conference. I couldn't do both. You could have called her a car service. That's not the same as showing up. Why not? Michael thought about that. Why wasn't it the same? Why had it mattered so much that he personally drive Elena, that he sit with her, talk with her, listen to her story? Because, he said slowly, money doesn't hold anyone's hand. Money doesn't listen. Money doesn't see people. And I'm tired of solving problems by throwing money at them and calling it kindness. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. You're really going to pick her up tonight? At 11 p.m.? Yes. And tomorrow? And the day after? You're going to be this woman's personal driver for 3 days? If that's what it takes. Mike, you know how this looks, right? Rich celebrity helps struggling single mother. The optics. I don't care about the optics. Michael's voice rose. For once in my life, I don't care how it looks or how it plays or what narrative gets built. I care about a woman who hoes 16-hour shifts to keep her daughter alive, who holds dying people's hands because everyone deserves someone with them at the end, who apologized to me for needing help. I care about showing up for her the way I wish someone had shown up for my father. His voice cracked on the last words. Marcus's expression shifted from frustration to understanding. You're still carrying that, Marcus said quietly. His death. The guilt. Every day. Michael's eyes burned. Every single day, I think about him dying alone. And every day, I make a choice. I can let that destroy me, or I can let it transform me. I can become bitter that no one helped him, or I can become the person who helps everyone else. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I get it. I don't love it from a management perspective, but I get it. You need to do this. He stood up, grabbed his briefcase. So here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow's press conference, you show up. You answer questions about the championship. Someone will ask about today, they always do, and you give them the truth. Not Elena's name, not the details, just the truth. You helped someone who needed help. That's it. No apologies, no excuses, just simple truth. And if they push, then you tell them that your private choices are private, and your public choices speak for themselves. You're Michael Jordan. You've earned the right to have boundaries. Michael felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. That actually works. I'm good at my job. Marcus smiled slightly. Even when you make it incredibly difficult. After Marcus left, Michael made dinner, something simple, pasta and vegetables, and ate alone at his enormous dining table. The house was too quiet. It always was. Fame had bought him privacy, security, luxury, but it had also bought him isolation. He thought about Elena's crowded apartment, her daughter, her mother, the thin walls and constant noise. The way she'd described it hadn't sounded like complaining, it had sounded like life. Messy. Overwhelming. Real life. At 10:30 p.m. Michael got in his car and drove to Mercy General. The hospital's parking lot was mostly empty at this hour, just a few cars belonging to night shift workers and people keeping vigil. Michael parked near the entrance and waited. He'd brought a baseball cap and sunglasses, his usual disguise, but sitting alone in a Ferrari in a hospital parking lot at night probably drew more attention than his face would. At 11:03, Elena emerged from the automatic doors. She looked destroyed. Her scrubs were different from this morning, fresh ones, probably from a locker, but her face was grey with exhaustion. She walked slowly like her bones hurt, clutching her purse and a water bottle. Michael got out of the car. Elena saw him and stopped, her expression cycling through surprise, confusion, and something that looked like relief mixed with embarrassment. "You came," she said, and her voice was so small. "I said I would." "I know, but..." she trailed off. "People say things they don't mean all the time." Michael understood that. Understood a life where promises were empty, where people disappointed you, where you learned not to hope too hard for anything. "I mean what I say," he told her. "Always. Let's get you home." Elena climbed into the car like she was entering a dream, carefully, uncertainly, like she might wake up any second and find herself still stranded on the highway. As Michael pulled out of the parking lot, Elena leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. "Bad day?" he asked gently. "Daniel died," she said, and her voice broke. The 26-year-old. His priest came, and his parents were there, and I held his hand until the end. He was so scared, Mike, so scared, and I told him it was okay, that he wasn't alone, that he was going somewhere beautiful, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know anything anymore." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. Michael didn't offer platitudes, didn't tell her it would be okay, or that she'd done her best, or any of the empty things people said when there was nothing real to say. Instead, he reached over and briefly squeezed her hand. "Thank you for being with him," Michael said quietly. "Thank you for making sure he wasn't alone." Elena's fingers tightened around his for just a moment before she let go. They drove through Chicago's late-night streets in silence, and Michael thought about legacy again. Tomorrow, he'd face the press. Tomorrow, they'd demand explanations and apologies. Tomorrow, he'd have to defend, choosing a person over a press conference. But tonight, he was driving a hospice nurse home after she'd held a dying man's hand. Tonight, he was showing up for someone who spent her life showing up for others. 14 days after the missed press conference, a manila envelope arrived at Michael Jordan's house with no return address. The intervening 2 weeks had been exactly as brutal as Marcus predicted. The rescheduled press conference had been a battlefield. Reporters had circled like sharks, smelling blood in the water, demanding to know where he'd been, what had happened, whether he was demanding a trade or having personal problems. Michael had sat at that podium, championship trophy gleaming beside him, and told them the simple truth. "I was helping someone who needed help." That's all you're getting. The follow-up questions had been relentless. Who were you helping? Someone whose privacy I'm protecting. Was it family? A friend? It was someone who needed help. Do you think missing the original press conference was unprofessional? I think showing up for people in crisis is more important than photo opportunities. If that's unprofessional, then I'm unprofessional. Are you saying the press conference wasn't important? I'm saying a human being in need was more important. Make of that what you will. They had made plenty of it. The headlines ranged from supportive "Jordan puts humanity over publicity" to scathing "Jordan's ego finally eclipses his common sense." Sports radio had debated it endlessly. Some called him a hero for having priorities. Others called him a selfish diva who thought rules didn't apply to him. Jerry Krause had fined him $50,000 for missing the original conference. Michael had written the check without argument. His endorsement partners had expressed concern through their lawyers, which Marcus translated as "one more incident and we're reconsidering our contracts." Nike had been surprisingly supportive, which Michael appreciated. McDonald's less so, but the strangest part of the aftermath had been the silence from Elena. Michael had driven her home that first night, learned she lived in a modest apartment complex in Pilsen with her daughter and mother. He'd driven her to work the next morning at 6 a.m., picked her up after another double shift. On the third day, her car had been ready, and he'd driven her to the shop, paid the $47 repair bill over her tearful protests, and told her it was a gift, not a loan. She'd hugged him in the parking lot of that repair shop, a tight, desperate hug that said more than words could. "Thank you," she'd whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." Then she'd driven away in her repaired Honda, and Michael hadn't heard from her since. He'd thought about her constantly. Wondered if she was okay, if Iris's health was stable, if Elena was managing the impossible juggling act of her life. He'd thought about calling, then decided against it. She had his number. If she needed help, she'd ask. Except Elena Vasquez wasn't someone who asked for help easily. He'd learned that about her. So when the manila envelope arrived, addressed in careful handwriting to Michael Jordan with no other identifying information, he knew immediately who it was from. Michael sat on his back patio overlooking the pool he never used and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, written on lined notebook paper in blue ink. The handwriting was neat but hurried, written by someone who didn't have time to waste on perfect penmanship. He began to read. "Dear Mike, I'm writing this during my night shift at the hospital. It's 2 a.m. and all my patients are sleeping, and I finally have time to think about everything that's happened. First, I need to apologize. I saw the news coverage. I saw what helping me cost you the press conference you missed. The fines, the terrible things people said about you. I'm horrified that my broken down car caused all that damage to your reputation. If you need me to go public and explain what really happened, I'll do it. I'll call every news station in Chicago if it would help clear your name. But I'm hoping you'll let me say something else instead. Last night, one of my patients died. His name was Robert Chen. No relation to my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Just coincidence. Robert was 42 years old, father of 3 kids under 10, pancreatic cancer. He'd been fighting for 6 months, and he knew he was losing. I've been his primary nurse for the last month. We talked a lot, especially at night, when the pain was bad and sleep wouldn't come. He told me about his kids, about the things he wished he could teach them, about all the moments he'd miss, first dates, graduations, weddings. 3 nights ago, he asked me to write something down for his children. He wanted me to remember it exactly so he could make sure he got the words right when they came to visit. He said, "Tell them it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up for people when they need you, even when it costs you something. Especially then. That's how you know what you're made of, not in the easy moments but in the hard ones, when helping someone means sacrificing something you care about." Mike. When he said those words, I started crying. Right there at his bedside. Because he was describing you. He was describing what you did for me. You showed up. You were late for something that mattered to your career, something that could hurt you professionally, because I mattered more in that moment. A stranger with a flat tire mattered more than your reputation, your brand, your carefully managed image. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people in this world put themselves first, always, and call it being smart or protecting their interests? I work with dying people every single day. I hold their hands as they leave this world, and I listen to their regrets. You know what nobody ever says? Nobody ever says they wish they'd worked more. Nobody wishes they'd been more famous or made more money or protected their brand better. They wish they'd been kinder. They wish they'd helped more. They wish they'd chosen people over things, over and over, until it became who they were instead of something they did occasionally when it was convenient. You already know this. You live it. And Mike, you need to keep living it. Don't let the media make you doubt what you did. Don't let anyone make you feel like choosing humanity over publicity was wrong. You told me your father taught you to show up for people. I never met him, but I know he'd be proud of you. So proud, because you're living his legacy in the best possible way. My patients teach me every day that at the end of life what matters is how we loved people, how we showed up, how we chose kindness when it cost us something. You chose kindness. You chose me, a nobody, a stranger, someone who could give you nothing in return. And that choice cost you money and reputation and peace. But it also gave you something. At least, I hope it did. It gave me everything. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for driving me to work. Thank you for seeing me as a person worth helping instead of a problem to solve with money. Thank you for those 3 days of showing up, for listening to me talk about my daughter, for not making me feel small or burdensome, or like a charity case. You gave me something I haven't felt in years, the feeling that I matter, that my life, my struggles, my exhaustion, they matter to someone. Not because you felt sorry for me, but because you saw me as human, and humans help each other. I can't pay you back for the car repairs, not in money, but I can promise you something. I'm going to spend the rest of my life holding people's hands the way you held mine metaphorically on that highway. I'm going to show up for dying patients and scared families and everyone who needs someone to see them as human. And when Iris is old enough to understand, I'm going to tell her this story. I'm going to tell her about the man who stopped when others drove past, about the champion who chose a stranger over his championship celebration, about real greatness which has nothing to do with trophies. P.S. Iris drew you a picture. She doesn't know you're famous. She doesn't understand basketball or endorsements or press conferences. She just knows you helped her mama when her mama needed help. That's the only thing that matters to an 8-year-old, and maybe it's the only thing that should matter to anyone. P.P.S. Robert died this morning, about an hour ago. His last words were to his wife, "I showed up for you every day. That's what matters." And you know what, Mike? He was right. That's all that matters. Showing up. With more gratitude than I can express. Elena. Michael read the letter 3 times, and by the 3rd time he couldn't see the words through his tears. He sat on his patio as the sun rose over Chicago, holding this letter from a woman who understood exactly what his choice had meant, not to his career, but to his soul. She'd quoted Robert Chen. It's about showing up for people when they need you, even when it costs you something, especially then. His father had said almost exactly the same thing. Real character shows up when nobody's watching, son. When it costs you something. That's when you learn who you really are. 2 men, strangers to each other, separated by life and death, saying the same truth in different words. Michael pulled out the second item from the envelope. The drawing Iris had made. It was on white paper, created with crayons in the fearless, joyful style of children who haven't learned to doubt their art yet. She'd drawn a stick figure changing a tire, him presumably, though the figure was impossibly tall and wearing what looked like a crown. Beside the car stood a smaller stick figure with long dark hair and a big smile. Elena. Above them, a yellow sun with rays extending in all directions, and written across the top in careful, childish letters, "Thank you for helping my mama." At the bottom, in smaller writing, as if added as an afterthought, "You are a good person." Michael broke. He sat on his patio, in his mansion, surrounded by every luxury money could buy, and cried like he hadn't cried since his father's funeral. Not sad tears. Something else. Something that felt like release, like permission, like coming home to himself after being lost. A good person. An 8-year-old thought he was a good person. Not a great basketball player, not a champion, not a brand or an image or edge, or just a good person who'd helped her mama. Michael called his mother. It was early, barely 7 a.m., but Dolores answered on the second ring. "Baby?" "Mom." His voice was thick. "I got a letter." "From her?" "From Elena." "Yeah." He read her the entire letter, his voice breaking on certain passages. When he finished, there was silence on the line. Then his mother said, "Your father is smiling right now, Michael. Wherever he is, he's smiling so big. You think, I know. Because this right here, this is why we raised you the way we did. Not to be famous, not to be rich, to be good, to be the kind of man who stops for strangers and holds their hands and makes them feel like they matter." Michael looked at Iris's drawing again. The stick figure with the crown. "She drew me with a crown, Mom. Because you're a king to her, not because of basketball. Because you saw her mother as human." They talked for another 20 minutes about legacy, about purpose, about the difference between fame and character. When they hung up, Michael felt something shift inside him, something fundamental clicking into place. He'd spent 2 weeks questioning his choice, absorbing criticism, wondering if he'd made a mistake. But Elena's letter, Robert Chen's dying words, they'd given him clarity. This was who he was supposed to be. Not despite the criticism, but because of it. The cost was the point. Choosing people when it hurt, when it was inconvenient, when it cost him money, or reputation or peace. That was when character meant something. Michael called Marcus. "I need you to set something up for me," he said when his agent answered, sounding groggy. "I want to start a foundation. In my father's name. For helping people, roadside assistance, emergency services, support for families dealing with random violence. I want it to actually help people, not just be a tax write-off. Can you make that happen?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Mike, it's 7:30 in the morning. I know. Can you make it happen?" Yeah, I can make it happen. How much are you thinking?" "However much it takes. This isn't about good press. This is about honoring my father by living what he taught me." "Okay." Marcus's voice was different now. Not agent managing client, but friend supporting friend. "We'll start making calls. We'll build something real." After hanging up, Michael sat with Elena's letter and Iris's drawing, watching Chicago wake up. The city he'd won championships for, the city that had alternately celebrated and criticized him, the city where Elena Vasquez worked 16-hour shifts, holding dying people's hands. He thought about showing up, about the cost and the point and the legacy that mattered. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Jordan, this is Patricia Wong, Elena's supervisor at Mercy General. She doesn't know I'm reaching out, but I wanted to thank you for what you did. Elena has been struggling. And your kindness, both the help with her car And just seeing her, really seeing her, it gave her hope when she was close to breaking. Thank you for being the kind of person who stops. The world needs more of that. Michael saved the message, saved the letter, saved Iris's drawing in a frame on his desk where he could see it every day. And he made a decision that would change the trajectory of his life. He would show up, not just once, not just for Elena, but for everyone. When it cost him, when nobody was watching, when it was inconvenient or complicated or professionally risky, he would show up. Because his father had taught him that real greatness had nothing to do with championships. It had everything to do with choosing people over everything else. Michael kept Elena's letter in his desk drawer, Iris's drawing framed on his office wall. He read the letter when doubt crept in, when the critics got too loud, when he questioned whether any of it mattered. The letter reminded him what Robert Chen had known in his final hours: showing up was everything. The media storm had eventually subsided, replaced by new scandals and controversies. Michael Jordan's mysterious absence became a footnote, a strange blip in an otherwise legendary career. Some reporters still brought it up in interviews, probing for details he refused to give. He developed a stock answer: "I helped someone who needed help. That's between me and them." The mystery only made people more curious. Michael hadn't spoken to Elena since the day he'd paid for her car repairs. He thought about calling her dozens of times, then stopped himself. She had his number. She'd reached out once with that letter, and he'd respected her space after that. Maybe she needed distance from the whole situation. Maybe being connected to him was more burden than blessing. Still, he wondered. How was Iris? Was Elena managing the impossible weight of her life? Had things gotten better or worse? The foundation Marcus had helped him establish, the James Jordan Legacy Fund, was growing. They'd quietly helped 47 families in 3 months. Roadside assistance for stranded motorists, emergency funds for single parents, support for families affected by random violence. Michael had insisted on anonymity for recipients, no press releases, no photo opportunities, just help when people needed it. It felt right in a way that championships never quite had. December arrived with Chicago's brutal cold. Michael was at the Berto Center for practice when his phone rang. Dr. Patricia Wong, Elena's supervisor. They'd exchanged a few texts over the months. Patricia keeping him updated on Elena without violating her privacy, Michael occasionally asking if Elena needed anything. Dr. Wong, Michael answered, "Is everything okay?" "I'm not sure." Patricia's voice was tight. "Elena hasn't shown up for her shift. That's not like her. She's never late, never calls in sick. I've been trying to reach her all morning. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Her mother isn't answering either." Michael's chest tightened. When was she supposed to be there? 7 a.m. It's almost noon now. 5 hours. Elena, who worked doubles without complaint, who showed up exhausted and bleeding, who'd never missed a shift, she was 5 hours late. "What's her address?" Michael asked, already heading for the locker room. Patricia hesitated. "Michael, I shouldn't give out personal information." "Patricia, please. If something's wrong, she needs help. You know I'm not gonna hurt her. You know I care about her safety." Another pause. Then Patricia rattled off an address in Pilsen. "If you find her, please have her call me. I'm worried." "I will." Michael grabbed his keys, ignored Scottie Pippen's questioning look, and drove faster than he should have through Chicago's midday traffic. The address led him to a 3-story brick apartment building that had seen better decades. The front entrance was unlocked, a security risk that made him wince. He took the stairs 2 at a time to apartment. He knocked. No answer. He knocked harder. "Elena? It's Michael Jordan. Are you okay?" Nothing. He tried, the doorknob locked. He was about to call Patricia back when he heard it, a small voice from inside, high and frightened. "Hello?" "A child." "Iris." "Iris? It's Mike, the man who helped your mom with the car. Remember?" A pause. "Uncle Mike?" His heart squeezed. She remembered him. "Yeah, sweetie. Can you open the door?" "I'm not supposed to open the door for strangers." "That's smart. Very smart. Is your mum there? Or your grandma?" "Mama's sick." Abuela went to get medicine. She said not to open the door. Sick. Elena was sick, and Rosa had left Iris alone to get medication. That meant it was serious. Rosa wouldn't leave her granddaughter unless it was necessary. "Iris, I'm going to wait right here outside the door, okay? When your grandma comes back, I'll help her take care of your mama. Can you tell me what's wrong with her? She's really hot, and she won't wake up." Michael's blood went cold. Won't wake up. High fever. Those were emergency symptoms. "Iris, listen to me carefully. I need you to be really brave, okay? I'm going to call 911. That's the number for doctors who come to your house. They're going to help your mama, but I need you to unlock the door so they can get in. Can you do that?" But Abuela said, "I know. And your grandma is very smart, but your mama needs help right now, and I promise, I'm here to help her. Remember how I helped her with the tire? This is like that. I'm here to help." Silence. Michael's heart hammered. He was about to call 911 and tell them to break down the door when he heard the chain sliding, the deadbolt turning. The door opened to reveal Iris Vasquez, 8 years old, tiny for her age, with her mother's dark eyes and dark hair. She was wearing pajamas with butterflies on them. Her face was streaked with tears. "Thank you for being so brave," Michael said gently, crouching to her level. "Where's your mama?" Iris pointed to a bedroom off the living room. Michael moved quickly, and what he saw made his stomach drop. Elena was in bed, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, her face flushed with fever. She was unconscious, breathing shallow and rapid. Michael touched her forehead, burning hot, dangerously hot. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "What's your emergency?" "I have a woman, mid-30s, unconscious with a high fever. She's breathing but unresponsive. I need an ambulance immediately." He gave the address, answered the dispatcher's questions with the calm he'd learned from years of high-pressure situations. "Ambulance is 6 minutes out. Stay on the line with me." "Is she on any medications?" Michael looked at Iris, who stood in the doorway clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Iris, does your mama take medicine?" Iris nodded and pointed to the bathroom. Michael found it a shelf full of prescription bottles. He read the labels to the dispatcher: antibiotics, anxiety medication, heart medication for Iris that Elena probably administered. "Sir, you said heart medication for the child?" "The daughter has a heart condition. VSD, I think." Michael had remembered Elena mentioning it. Understood. The paramedics are 3 minutes away. Has the patient been sick recently? Michael didn't know. He hadn't spoken to Elena in 3 months. "Iris, has your mama been sick?" "She had a cough. For a long time. She said it was okay, but it got worse. A cough for a long time." Elena had probably been working through illness, unable to afford missing shifts, pushing herself until her body gave out. Michael heard sirens approaching. "Iris, some nice people are going to come help your mama. They'll take her to the hospital to make her feel better, okay? Is mama going to die?" Iris's voice was so small, so terrified. Michael knelt in front of her, took her small hands in his. "Your mama is a fighter, and she's getting help now. We're going to take care of her." The paramedics arrived, 2 men and a woman, professional and efficient. They assessed Elena quickly. Pneumonia, possibly septic. They got an IV started, loaded her onto a stretcher. Michael stood back, letting them work, keeping Iris calm. "Are you family?" one of the paramedics asked. "Friend. Her mother went to get medicine, should be back soon. I'll stay with the daughter. We're taking her to Mercy General." Of course. The hospital where Elena worked. Where her colleagues would see her like this. The woman who always showed up, now being wheeled in unconscious because she'd worked herself sick. As they carried Elena out, Rosa Mendoza appeared in the hallway, clutching a pharmacy bag, her face going white. "Elena, Mejia, what happened?" "Mrs. Mendoza, I'm Michael, we met briefly. Elena's sick. Pneumonia. They're taking her to Mercy General." Rosa swayed, and Michael caught her arm. She looked ancient in that moment, overwhelmed and terrified. "I left to get medicine. She was sleeping. I thought I didn't know. You did everything right. She needs you now. Can you drive to the hospital?" Rosa shook her head. "No car. Elena's car is broken again. It's been making noises. She couldn't afford to fix it." She pressed her hand to her mouth, holding back a sob. "I'll drive you both." Michael turned to Iris. "Grab some things for you and your grandma, okay? We're going to stay with your mama at the hospital." 20 minutes later, Michael was driving his Ferrari through Chicago with Rosa in the passenger seat and Iris in the back, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on him. Michael Jordan playing chauffeur to a sick nurse's family, but it was exactly where he needed to be. At Mercy General's emergency room, they found Patricia Wong waiting. She'd gotten word that Elena had been brought in. Her face was tight with worry. "How is she?" Michael asked. "Pneumonia. Severe. She's septic. They're starting aggressive antibiotics and IV fluids. She must have been sick for weeks and kept working through it." Patricia's voice was angry and sad. "This is what happens when people can't afford to be sick. They work until they collapse." Rosa was crying softly. Iris clung to her grandmother's hand, silent and scared. Patricia looked at Michael. "I'm glad you found her. If she'd been alone much longer..." She didn't finish the sentence. They moved to a private waiting room. Patricia used her staff privileges to get them updates every hour. Elena was stable but critical. The infection had spread. It would be touch and go for the next 24 hours. Michael sat with Rosa and Iris, ordered food they didn't eat, made phone calls to cancel his evening plans. Scotty called asking where he was. "Hospital," Michael said. "Friend needs help. I'll be here as long as it takes." At 8 p.m., a doctor came out, a young woman who looked exhausted. "Mrs. Mendoza? Elena's stable. We have the infection under control, but she's going to be in the hospital for at least a week. She's sedated now, resting. You can see her briefly if you'd like." Rosa and Iris went in. Michael stayed in the waiting room, staring at his hands, thinking about Elena working herself sick because she couldn't afford to stop. Thinking about a healthcare system that made people choose between rent and recovery. Thinking about how close they'd come to losing her. When Rosa and Iris returned, Rosa looked at Michael with tears streaming down her face. "You saved her life. If you hadn't come, if you hadn't called..." She couldn't finish. "I'm just glad I did." "Why?" Rosa asked. "Why do you care so much about my daughter? You're Michael Jordan. You have everything. Why do you keep showing up for us?" Michael thought about his father, about Elena's letter, about Robert Chen's dying words, about Iris's drawing still hanging in his office. "Because showing up is what matters," he said quietly. "Your daughter taught me that. She holds dying people's hands so they're not alone. The least I can do is hold hers when she needs it." Rosa crossed herself. "Dios te bendiga," she whispered. "God bless you." At midnight, Patricia convinced Rosa and Iris to go home and rest. Michael drove them back to the apartment, helped Rosa get Iris to bed, and promised to return in the morning. As he drove home through empty Chicago streets, his phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Where were you today? Missed practice. Coach is pissed." Michael typed back, "Emergency. Friend in the hospital. Tell coach I'll explain tomorrow." Same friend from before. "Yeah. Mike, people are going to start talking. Let them talk." Because some things were more important than basketball, more important than what people thought, more important than protecting an image or managing a brand. Elena had spent months showing up for dying strangers. The absolute least he could do was show up for her when she was the one fighting for her life. Elena woke on the third day. Michael wasn't there when it happened. He'd gone home to shower and change after spending 48 hours cycling between the hospital, Rose's apartment, and basketball obligations he couldn't completely abandon. But Patricia called him immediately. "She's awake, asking for her daughter," and Patricia paused. "She's asking for you." Michael arrived at Mercy General within 20 minutes. He found Elena in a private room. Patricia had pulled strings, sitting up slightly, still connected to IV lines and monitors, but conscious. Her face was pale, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion that went deeper than the pneumonia. She saw him in the doorway and her eyes filled with tears. "You found me," she whispered. Michael entered the room, pulled a chair close to her bed. "You scared everyone. 5 hours late for work." Patricia knew something was wrong. "I don't remember. I remember feeling sick, so tired. Then nothing. Then waking up here." Elena's voice was rough, damaged from the breathing tube they'd used the first night. "Iris? She's fine, brave as hell. She's the one who let me in the apartment. Your mom's taking care of her." "My mom?" Elena closed her eyes. "She must be terrified. She watched my father die from pneumonia 20 years ago, and now Her voice broke. Michael reached out, took her hand carefully, avoiding the IV line. "You're going to be okay. The doctors say another week of antibiotics, rest, and you'll recover fully." "A week?" Elena's face crumpled. "I can't afford a week. I need to work. The bills, Iris's medication, the rent's due in 5 days." "Elena," Michael's voice was firm but gentle. "You almost died. You worked yourself into septic shock because you couldn't afford to be sick. You're not going back to work until you're actually healed. You don't understand. If I lose this job, you're not going to lose your job. Patricia's already handled it. You're on medical leave, paid." Elena stared at him. "Paid leave? We don't get paid sick leave. The hospital does." Patricia pulled some strings, called it a workplace exposure, which it was. "You got sick from patients. Workers' comp covers it." That wasn't entirely true. What had actually happened was Michael had a quiet conversation with the hospital administrator, mentioning his interest in making a substantial donation to the hospice unit. The administrator had suddenly discovered Elena's situation qualified for paid medical leave under a policy that might not have technically existed before that conversation. But Elena didn't need to know that. "I don't believe it," Elena whispered. "Things like that don't happen to people like me." "They do now." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "Elena, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without arguing." She tensed. "What?" "Your car is dying. Your apartment has mold that's probably making you and Iris sick. You're one emergency away from losing everything you've built. And you're killing yourself trying to hold it all together alone." "I'm not alone. I have my mother, who's 72 with arthritis and can barely afford her own medications. Elena, you're drowning, and you're too proud to ask for a life preserver." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "What am I supposed to do?" Accept charity, become someone's project. I've worked so hard to stand on my own feet. You're already standing on your own feet. You've been standing alone for so long you forgot what it feels like to have someone stand beside you. Elena pulled her hand from his, wiped her face roughly. Why you're doing this? Why do you care? I'm nobody. I'm a nurse you helped once. Why do you keep showing up? Michael had asked himself that question 100 times over the past 3 months. The simple answer was his father, Elena's letter, the guilt over James Jordan dying alone. But the deeper answer, the one he'd been avoiding, was more complicated. Because, he said slowly, you reminded me why any of this matters. The championships, the fame, the money. None of it means anything if I'm not using it to show up for people. Show up every single day for dying strangers. You hold their hands. You make them feel like they matter, and nobody was showing up for you. So this is pity? This is friendship? Or it could be, if you'd let it. Elena looked at him for a long moment, her face cycling through emotions: suspicion, hope, fear, exhaustion. Finally she said, I don't know how to accept help, Mike. I've been alone for so long. Since David left, since my father died, I've learned that depending on people means getting hurt. I'm not David. I'm not going to leave when things get hard. How can you promise that? You barely know me. I know you hold dying people's hands. I know you work 16-hour shifts so your daughter can have her medications. I know you tried to change your own tire until your hands bled because asking for help felt like failure. I know you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. That's enough. Elena's chin trembled. The bills are handled. What? The foundation I started, my father's legacy fund, it's designed for situations exactly like this. Emergency assistance for people in crisis. Your rent is paid for 6 months. Iris's medications are covered. Your car is being replaced. No. Elena's voice went sharp. Absolutely not. I'm not a charity case. You're not charity. You're the reason the foundation exists. Elena, I watched you nearly die because you couldn't afford to be sick. That's not pride. That's a broken system. Let me fix this one small piece of it. Please. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let someone help you the way you help everyone else. They sat in tense silence. Michael could see her fighting with herself, pride warring with desperation, independence battling exhaustion. Finally, Elena spoke, her voice small. 6 months. 6 months of rent, paid directly to your landlord. You'll never see the money. But you also won't have to choose between rent and Iris's medication. You won't have to work yourself into the ground. You can rest, heal, study for that RN exam you've been putting off. How did you? Patricia mentioned it. She says you're brilliant but too exhausted to study. Take the exam, pass it, get the salary increase. Then you'll be more stable and you won't need the foundation's help anymore. Elena covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. Michael sat quietly, giving her space to feel everything, the relief, the shame, the gratitude, the fear. When she finally looked up, her face was blotchy and tear-streaked. Why are you so good to me? Because you deserve it. And because someone needs to show you that accepting help doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. A knock interrupted them. Patricia entered with Rosa and Iris. The little girl's face lit up when she saw her mother awake, and she rushed to the bedside. Mama, you're awake. Hi, baby. Elena's voice was thick with emotion. I'm okay. Mama's okay. Iris climbed carefully onto the bed, practiced, like she'd done this before during her own hospitalizations. She curled against Elena's side, and Rosa stood at the foot of the bed, crying quietly. Michael stood to give them space, But Elena caught his hand. "Mike, stay, please. You're part of this now." So he stayed. He sat in that hospital room while Elena held her daughter and reassured her mother and slowly accepted that she wasn't alone anymore. That she had people had him standing beside her. Patricia pulled Michael aside later while Elena was sleeping. They stood in the hallway, watching nurses move efficiently through their shifts. The same shifts Elena would have been working if she hadn't collapsed. "You know what's going to happen now, don't you?" Patricia said quietly. "What?" "People are going to find out. Michael Jordan spending days at a hospital with a hospice nurse. Someone's going to notice. Someone's going to talk. And when they do, the story will explode." Michael had thought about this. The inevitable moment when his private choice became public spectacle. When helping Elena would become a headline, a hot take, a narrative he couldn't control. "Let it explode," he said. "I'm done hiding kindness like it's shameful." Patricia smiled slightly. "You know, when Elena first told me about you, about the flat tire, about everything, I didn't believe her. Michael Jordan personally driving a nurse to work. It sounded like a fantasy. But she had your card, had the receipts from the car repair, and I realized something. You're exactly who Elena said you were. Just a good man who shows up. I'm trying to be." "It's working." Patricia checked her watch. "I have to get back to rounds. But Michael, thank you for saving her. She's one of our best nurses. But more than that, she's one of the best humans I know. She deserved someone showing up for her." After Patricia left, Michael returned to Elena's room. Rosa had taken Iris down to the cafeteria. Elena was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" Michael asked. "Too much to think about." She turned her head to look at him. "Dr. Wong said something strange earlier. She said, 'I've been nominated for the hospital's Compassionate Care Award. They only give it to one nurse a year. I've never been nominated before.'" Michael kept his expression neutral. He'd had nothing to do with that nomination. Probably, though he might have mentioned to the hospital administrator during their donation discussion that Elena was extraordinary at her job. "You deserve it," he said simply. "I just do my job. You do it better than anyone else. That matters." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Mike, what happens after the 6 months? After the foundation money runs out, you'll be in a better position. RN, salary, stable health, a car that works. You'll be okay. And you? You'll disappear back into your life? Back to basketball and endorsements and the world that has nothing to do with people like me?" The question stung because Michael had been asking himself the same thing. What was this relationship? What could it be? He was Michael Jordan. His life was airports and arenas and contract negotiations. Elena was a single mother barely surviving on a nurse's salary. Their worlds didn't intersect naturally. Except they did now. They had intersected on a highway 3 months ago, and somehow they kept intersecting, kept finding reasons to show up for each other. "I'm not disappearing," Michael said firmly. "I'm your friend." "Elena, friends don't disappear. Even when the crisis is over. Even when I'm not an interesting story anymore. You were never a story to me. You're a person. And friendship doesn't have an expiration date." Elena's eyes filled with tears again. She seemed to cry constantly now, all the emotions she'd been holding back for years, finally breaking free. "I've never had a friend like you," she whispered. "Now you do." That night, as Michael drove home through Chicago's midnight streets, his phone rang. "Marcus, where are you?" his agent asked without preamble. "Leaving the hospital." "Still?" "Mike, you've been there for 3 days straight. People are noticing. There are photos on social media. Someone spotted you in the hospital cafeteria. The questions are starting. Is she family? A secret girlfriend? What's the real story? Michael felt the familiar tightness in his chest. The press, the speculation, the public consumption of his private choices. The real story is that a friend was sick, and I showed up. That's it. You know it's not going to be that simple. It should be, but it won't be. And Mike, you need to prepare for that. Because when this story breaks, and it will break, everyone will want a piece of it. Her privacy, your privacy, it'll all get demolished. Michael thought about Elena sleeping in that hospital bed, finally resting, finally accepting help. Thought about Iris curling against her mother's side. Thought about Rosa's grateful tears. Then we protect them, Michael said. Whatever it takes, we protect Elena and her family from the circus. How? You can't control the media. No. But I can control my response. I can refuse to make them spectacle. I can draw a line and hold it. Marcus sighed. You're really committed to this, aren't you? To her, to this whole thing. I'm committed to showing up when it matters. That's not going to change, Marcus. Not for good press, not for bad press, not for anything. Okay. Then we prepare for the storm, because it's coming. Michael hung up and sat in his car outside his empty mansion, thinking about storms and consequences and the price of being seen as human instead of superhuman. Elena's letter was still in his desk drawer. He'd read it again tonight. At the end of life, what matters is how we loved people, how we showed up, how we chose kindness when it cost us something. The storm was coming. The media would dissect every choice, every motive, every moment. They'd make Elena a victim or a gold digger. They'd make Michael a savior or a fool. But the storm didn't change the truth. He'd shown up. He'd helped someone who needed help. He'd chosen humanity over image. And he'd do it again. The story broke on a Tuesday morning. Michael was at practice when his phone started vibrating non-stop. Text after text, call after call, all with the same urgency. He checked during a water break and saw the TMZ headline, Michael Jordan's secret hospital vigil, NBA legend spends days with mysterious woman. Below it, grainy photos taken through hospital windows. Michael sitting beside Elena's bed. Michael in the cafeteria with Iris and Rosa. Michael walking through Mercy General's parking lot at midnight. The article was pure speculation, suggesting Elena was everything from a secret girlfriend to a long-lost relative to a woman he'd gotten pregnant. None of it was true, but truth rarely mattered when scandal sold better. Marcus called. Don't read the comments. Too late. Michael had already scrolled through hundreds of them. The ones calling him a cheater were bad enough. The ones calling Elena a gold digger were worse. But the ones speculating about Iris, suggesting she might be his daughter, made him physically sick. We need to release a statement, Marcus said, before this spins completely out of control. What kind of statement? The truth. That Elena is a friend who was hospitalized, and you were supporting her family. Nothing romantic, nothing scandalous. Just friendship. Will anyone believe that? Probably not. But it's better than silence. Phil Jackson, the Bulls coach, pulled Michael aside after practice. You okay? Define okay. The woman in the photos, is she in trouble? Do you need help? Michael appreciated that Jackson's first question was about Elena's safety, not about potential scandal. She's recovering, but now she's going to wake up to see her face on TMZ. Her daughter's face. He couldn't finish the sentence. Then you protect them, Jackson said simply. However you need to. The team will support you. But Michael wasn't sure how to protect Elena from something like this. The internet was forever. Once photos were out, once speculation started, there was no controlling it. He called Patricia. Has Elena seen the news? Not yet. She's sleeping. But Mike, reporters called the hospital asking about her. I didn't give them anything, but they know her name now. They know she's a hospice nurse. It's only a matter of time before they show up at her apartment. Michael's stomach dropped. Rosa and Iris were at that apartment right now, alone, potentially about to be swarmed by photographers and reporters looking for a story. I'm going over there, Michael said. Is that wise? Won't that make it worse? It's already worse. At least I can help them manage it. He drove to Pilsen faster than he should have, watching for news vans or photographers. The street outside Elena's building was still quiet. They hadn't found it yet, but it was only a matter of time. Rosa answered his knock, her face creased with confusion. Michael? Is Elena okay? Elena's fine, but there's something you need to know. He showed her the articles, the photos, the speculation. Watched her face go from confusion to horror. They're saying terrible things about my daughter. About you. About you. About she looked toward the living room where Iris was doing homework. Dios mio. Iris. They're going to come here, Michael said gently. Reporters, photographers, looking for interviews, for more photos. You need to be prepared. How do I prepare for this? Rosa's hands shook. We're nobody. We live quiet lives. Why would anyone care about us? Because I care about you, and anything connected to me becomes public property. The bitterness in his voice surprised him. Iris appeared in the doorway. Uncle Mike, are you taking us to see Mama? Michael's heart broke at her innocent excitement. She had no idea that strangers were about to invade her life, speculate about her paternity, turn her family into entertainment. Soon, kiddo. First, I need to talk to your grandma about something. Can you give us a minute? After Iris returned to her homework, Michael laid out the situation to Rosa. I have security people who protect me from photographers and overzealous fans. I'm going to have them watch your building. They'll make sure no one harasses you or Iris, but you need to not answer the door for anyone you don't know. Don't talk to any reporters. Don't engage at all. For how long? Until the story dies. A few days, maybe a week. Something else will become more interesting, and they'll move on. And Elena? When she finds out about this? Michael thought about Elena seeing her face on gossip sites, seeing people make assumptions about her character, her motives, her relationship with him. She's going to be upset, probably angry. I need to tell her before she sees it somewhere else. He drove back to Mercy General, his mind racing with damage control strategies. Marcus was already working on an official statement. His PR team was monitoring the story's spread, but none of it felt like enough. Patricia intercepted him outside Elena's room. She knows. A nurse mentioned seeing something online, and Elena demanded a phone. She's been reading everything for the past 20 minutes. How is she? Angry, scared, humiliated. Patricia lowered her voice. She asked me to tell you not to come back. She thinks you being here makes it worse. Michael's chest tightened. Can I talk to her? She was pretty clear. Please, 5 minutes. Patricia hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. If she tells you to leave, you leave. Michael entered the room. Elena was sitting up, her phone in her lap, her face blotchy from crying. When she saw him, her expression hard. I told Patricia I didn't want to see you. I know. I'm sorry, but we need to talk about this. About how the entire internet thinks I'm your mistress, or maybe your baby mama, or just some pathetic gold digger who trapped you with a sob story. Her voice was sharp with anger and hurt. None of that is true. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's out there. My face is out there. Iris's face, her voice broke. They're speculating about my daughter's paternity, Mike. Strangers are suggesting she's yours. She's 8 years old. She doesn't deserve this. I know. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. What did you think would happen? Elena's eyes blazed. You're Michael Jordan. Everything you do becomes news. Did you really think you could play Good Samaritan without consequences? I thought helping a friend would be private. Nothing about your life is private, and now nothing about mine is either. She wiped her face roughly. I read the comments. All of them. Do you know what people are saying about me? That I got myself sick on purpose to trap you. That I'm using my daughter's illness for sympathy. That I'm a manipulative. She stopped, unable to continue. Michael moved closer, but Elena held up a hand. Don't. Just. Elena, I have security watching your building. No one will harass you or Rosa or Iris. I have lawyers who can send cease and desist letters to anyone who publishes lies. You have money and power and resources. I get it. But that doesn't fix this. That doesn't make people stop thinking I'm some kind of opportunist who seduced you for your money. Anyone who knows you would never think that. But they don't know me. They know a story. And stories don't have to be true to be believed. Elena's voice cracked. I worked so hard to build a life after David left, to prove I could stand on my own, to show Iris that her mother was strong and independent and didn't need anyone. And now everyone thinks I'm exactly what David said I was. Weak, needy, a burden. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I know. Then why does everyone think I need rescuing? Michael had no good answer for that. The truth was messy. Yes, Elena had needed help. Yes, he provided it. But needing help didn't make her weak, and providing help didn't make him a savior. It made them both human. I don't think you need rescuing, Michael said carefully. I think you needed a friend. There's a difference. Not to the internet, there's not. They sat in tense silence. Michael watched Elena struggle with emotions she'd spent years suppressing. Shame, anger, vulnerability, fear. I should have protected you better, Michael said finally. I should have anticipated this. Should have been more careful. How? By not helping me? By driving past when I needed help? Elena's laugh was bitter. That's the impossible part. You did everything right. You were kind and generous and exactly what I needed. And somehow, that became ammunition for people to destroy both of us. It'll blow over. These things always do. Maybe for you, you're Michael Jordan, you'll survive this. And 10 other scandals. But me? I'm just Elena Vasquez, and now when people Google my name, this is what they'll find. Forever. Michael didn't know what to say to that, because she was right. Fame had consequences, and those consequences had just destroyed her privacy, her dignity, and her hard-won independence. A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse entered with medication, then stopped when she saw Michael. Her eyes went wide. Oh my God. It's really true. Michael Jordan is... She caught herself. Can I get a photo? The silence in the room was deafening. No, Elena said coldly, you cannot. Please leave. The nurse left, flustered and embarrassed. But the damage was done. Even here, in Elena's hospital room, she couldn't escape the spectacle. This is my life now, Elena said quietly. People asking for photos. People staring. People making assumptions. All because you helped me change a tire. I don't regret helping you. Maybe you should. I don't, and I won't. No matter what the cost. Easy for you to say. You're not the one paying it. Elena turned away from him. I think you should go. Elena, please. I need time to think. To figure out how to protect my daughter from this circus, and I can't do that with you here making it worse. Michael stood slowly, feeling the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. He'd wanted to help. He'd wanted to show up. He'd wanted to be the kind of man his father had raised him to be. But in doing so, he'd exposed Elena and her family to a level of scrutiny they'd never asked for and couldn't escape. I'm sorry, he said again, for all of it. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this. Michael left the room feeling like he'd failed, not in helping Elena, but in protecting her from the consequences of that help. In the hallway, he found Patricia, Scottie Pippen, and surprisingly, 3 other Bulls players, Dennis Rodman, Ron Harper, and Tony Kukoc. What are you all doing here? Michael asked. Heard you might need backup, Scottie said simply. I don't understand. Dennis Rodman, never one for subtlety, stepped forward. Look man, we've all seen the news. We know that woman in there isn't your mistress or whatever bullshit they're saying. We know you were helping someone who needed help, and we wanted you to know we've got your back. Ron Harper nodded. We're putting out our own statements, saying we know the real story, that you were supporting a sick friend, trying to drown out the noise with truth. You don't have to do that. Yeah, we do, Scottie said, because you do it for any of us. That's what teammates do. That's what friends do. Michael felt his throat tighten. He'd been so focused on protecting Elena that he'd forgotten he wasn't alone either. Tony Kukoc spoke up, his accent thick. In my country we have saying, when you help one person, you help the world see what good looks like. You did good thing. Don't let them make you think different. Patricia cleared her throat. It's not just them. I talked to the other nurses. We're all putting statements on social media. Everyone who works with Elena, everyone who knows what kind of person she is, character witnesses, showing that she's not what they're saying she is. Michael looked at this group of people, his teammates, Elena's colleagues, all standing up to protect 2 people who'd simply tried to help each other. Thank you, he managed. All of you. That's what community does, Patricia said. We show up for each other. Elena's shown up for everyone at this hospital for years. Now it's our turn. Over the next 48 hours, something unexpected happened. The Bulls organization released a statement supporting Michael's compassionate actions toward a friend in need. His teammates flooded social media with posts defending both him and Elena. Nurses from Mercy General shared stories of Elena's kindness, her dedication, her character. More surprisingly, other people started sharing their own stories. Athletes who'd stopped to help strangers, celebrities who'd quietly supported people in crisis, regular people who'd been helped by Good Samaritans and wanted to push back against the cynical narrative. The hashtag showing up started trending. Not about Michael specifically, but about the idea that helping people shouldn't be scandalous, that kindness shouldn't be suspicious, that maybe we'd all become so cynical that we couldn't recognize genuine compassion anymore. Marcus called with an update, the narrative's shifting. Not completely, but enough. People are starting to see this differently. Less scandal, more human interest. Several organizations want you to speak about it. Ellen wants you on her show. Oprah's people called. No interviews, Michael said firmly. This isn't a publicity opportunity. Elena deserves her privacy. The foundation, though, people want to donate. The James Jordan Legacy Fund is getting thousands of requests. People want to help others the way you helped Elena. That gave Michael pause. Maybe something good could come from this nightmare. Maybe Elena's unwanted exposure could create opportunities for others who needed help. He visited Elena again on her 5th day in the hospital. She was being discharged soon, strong enough to go home, but still fragile. I saw what your teammates did, she said when he entered. And the nurses. And all of it. People wanted to help. Because of you. Because you showed them it matters. Elena's eyes filled with tears, but different tears than before. Mike, I've been lying here thinking about everything, about Robert Chen's last words, about your letter, about showing up. Elena, let me finish. I was angry. I'm still angry, honestly, at the invasion of privacy, at the speculation, at having my life turned into entertainment. But I've also been thinking about Iris, about what this teaches her. Michael waited. If I let this make me bitter, if I push you away because knowing you is complicated, what does that teach her? That accepting help makes you weak, that friendship isn't worth the risk, that kindness should be hidden because it's too messy. What do you want to teach her? That showing up matters, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something, especially then. Elena smiled through her tears. You taught me that, or maybe reminded me. I teach it to dying patients every day, but I forgot to apply it to my own life. So what does this mean? It means I'm not pushing you away. It means we figure this out together, the friendship, the foundation, all of it. It means I stop being so damn proud and accept that sometimes people help each other, and that's not weakness. That's humanity. Michael felt relief wash over him. You're sure? No. I'm terrified. But I'm sure that hiding from this, from friendship, from community, from people who want to help, that's worse than being afraid. For what it's worth, I'm terrified too. Good. We can be terrified together. Elena held out her hand. Friends? Michael took it. Friends. Even when it's messy? Especially then. As Michael left the hospital that evening, he saw something that made him stop. A group of nurses standing outside the entrance, holding a banner that read, "We stand with Elena." Below it, smaller signs, "Kindness is not scandal, and showing up matters." Patricia stood with them. We wanted her to see this when she's discharged tomorrow. Wanted her to know she's not alone. Michael thought about community, real community, not fame or celebrity, but actual human beings, choosing to stand beside each other when it mattered. His father had taught him to show up. Elena had reminded him why it mattered. And now all these people, teammates, nurses, strangers on the internet, they were showing him what happened when one act of kindness rippled outward. It created more kindness. More showing up. More humanity. 2 years later, June, the press conference room at the United Center was packed to capacity, even more crowded than that infamous day 2 years ago when Michael Jordan had failed to show. But today was different. Today, everyone knew exactly where Michael would be, because this was his announcement, his second retirement from professional basketball. The room hummed with anticipation. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters clutched notepads and recorders. This was history unfolding. The greatest basketball player of all time, stepping away from the game at the peak of his powers, having just won his 6th championship. But when Michael walked to the podium, he wasn't alone. Beside him walked Elena Vasquez, wearing a simple navy dress, her dark hair pulled back, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She looked terrified and determined in equal measure. The room erupted with confused murmurs. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward, trying to understand what was happening. Michael adjusted the microphone, his expression calm but emotional. Thank you all for coming. I know you're here to hear about my retirement from basketball, and we'll get to that. But first, I want to introduce someone who changed my life and whose story needs to be told. This is Elena Vasquez. Elena stepped closer to the microphone, her face pale but resolute. 2 years ago, Michael continued, I missed a press conference. Most of you remember that day. The speculation, the theories, the scandal. You wanted to know where I'd been, and I refused to tell you. I said I'd been helping someone who needed help, and I protected their privacy because it was the right thing to do. He glanced at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. Today, with her permission, I'm going to tell you the whole story. Because Elena has asked to speak, not to satisfy your curiosity, but to advocate for something bigger than both of us. The room was dead silent now. Every eye was fixed on the two figures at the podium. Elena, would you like to start? Michael asked gently. She took a shaky breath and leaned toward the microphone. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm a hospice nurse at Mercy General Hospital. 2 years ago, I was driving to work when my tire blew out on Interstate 57. I was stranded, alone, scared. I'd been working double shifts to support my daughter, who has a congenital heart condition that requires expensive medication. I was exhausted, barely holding my life together, and in that moment, standing on the side of the highway with a car I couldn't fix and a job I couldn't afford to lose, I felt completely hopeless. Her voice wavered, but she continued. 3 cars drove past me before Michael stopped. He didn't know me. He had somewhere important to be, but he stopped anyway, and that choice changed everything. Elena looked at Michael, and the genuine affection between them was visible to everyone in the room. He didn't just help me change my tire. He drove me to work because my spare was flat. He talked to me, listened to me, saw me as a human being instead of an inconvenience. And in doing that, he missed the press conference you all were waiting for. He chose me, a stranger, over his professional obligations, over his image, over everything. A reporter raised her hand, but Michael shook his head. Please let her finish. Elena nodded gratefully. When the story came out 2 years ago, it was painful. The speculation, the invasion of privacy, the things people said about me and my daughter, it was devastating. I wanted to hide. I wanted to push Michael away and pretend none of it had happened. She paused, composing herself. But then I remembered something one of my patients told me before he died. His name was Robert Chen. He was 42 years old, a father of 3, and he was dying of pancreatic cancer. In his final days, he asked me to write down a message for his children. Elena pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, worn and creased from being carried everywhere for 2 years. He said, "Tell them it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up for people when they need you, even when it costs you something. Especially then. That's how you know what you're made of. Not in the easy moments, but in the hard ones, when helping someone means sacrificing something you care about." Her voice broke, but she pushed through. When Robert said those words, I realized he was describing Michael. He was describing the choice Michael made to help me. And I understood that what happened between us, the flat tire, the missed press conference, all of it, it wasn't a scandal. It was a lesson about what really matters. Elena looked directly at the cameras now, her fear replaced by conviction. I work with dying people every single day. I hold their hands as they leave this world, and I listen to their regrets. You know what nobody ever says? Nobody says they wish they'd worked more, or been more famous, or protected their image better. They say they wish they'd been kinder. They wish they'd helped more. They wish they'd chosen people over things, over and over, until it became who they were. She turned back to Michael. That's who Michael Jordan is. Not the basketball player, though he's extraordinary at that. Not the celebrity or the brand. He's someone who shows up when it matters, even when it costs him everything. And that's why I'm here today. Michael took over, his voice thick with emotion. Elena is here because we've spent the last 2 years building something together. The James Jordan Legacy Fund. The foundation I started in my father's name has helped over 300 families in crisis. Emergency assistance, medical bills, car repairs, rent support. But it's not about the money. It's about showing people they're not alone. He looked at Elena. And Elena has been the heart of that work. She helped us design programs for healthcare workers in crisis. She connected us with families who needed help. She's been advocating for a different way of measuring success, not by championships or bank accounts, but by how we show up for each other. Lena stepped forward again. Today, Michael is retiring from basketball. And I'm not here to talk about his career stats or his championships. Other people can do that better than me. I'm here to tell you who he really is. Her eyes shone with tears. 2 years ago, Michael's choice to help me cost him money, reputation, and peace. People called him names, questioned his professionalism, made our friendship into something it wasn't. And through all of that, he never wavered. He kept showing up for me, for my daughter Iris, for my mother, for everyone the foundation serves. Michael Jordan's legacy, Elena said firmly, isn't 6 championships. It's not about being the greatest to ever play the game, though he is. His legacy is about stopping on a Tuesday afternoon when nobody was watching. It's about choosing humanity over image. It's about teaching the rest of us that greatness has nothing to do with trophies and everything to do with how we treat people when they need us most. The room was completely silent except for the soft sound of someone crying in the back row. But I'm not just here to praise Michael, Elena continued. I'm here to announce something he doesn't know about yet. Michael's head snapped toward her, surprised. They'd rehearsed this speech together, but this part was new. Elena smiled at his confusion and turned back to the crowd. For the past year, I've been working with families affected by random violence, people like Michael, who lost loved ones to senseless crime. I've been listening to their stories, learning about their needs, understanding their pain. And I realized something. James Jordan's death was a tragedy. But his son's response to that tragedy has created something beautiful. She took a deep breath. So today, I'm announcing the creation of the James Jordan Roadside Safety Initiative. It's a foundation dedicated to 3 things: providing emergency roadside assistance to stranded motorists, especially in vulnerable communities, supporting families affected by random violence, and training people, everyday people, to safely help others in crisis. Michael's eyes widened. This was news to him. Michael taught me that one person stopping can change everything, Elena said. His father died because no one stopped to help. But Michael stops for everyone, and he's taught thousands of other people to do the same. This foundation will formalize that, will create networks of trained helpers, will provide resources for people in crisis, will turn tragedy into purpose. She turned to face Michael directly. You said you stopped because someone needs to hold people's hands. You held mine on the worst day of my life, and now I'm going to spend the rest of my life holding the hands you can't reach. That's what your father's legacy made possible. That's what one flat tire started. Michael was crying openly now, and so was half the room. Elena reached for his hand, and he took it. The foundation is named after your father, Elena said softly, though her words were picked up by every microphone in the room. But it exists because of you, because you showed me, showed all of us, that being great means showing up, especially when it costs you something. Especially then. Michael pulled Elena into a hug, and the cameras captured it. 2 people from completely different worlds united by a choice made on a forgotten highway 2 years ago. When they separated, Michael wiped his eyes and addressed the crowd. I came here today to talk about retirement, about leaving basketball behind. But the truth is, I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm moving toward something that matters more. He looked at Elena. This woman, this extraordinary woman who holds dying people's hands, who works impossibly hard to keep her daughter healthy, who has spent 2 years turning her own pain into purpose. She's taught me what my father's death meant. Not just loss, but transformation. Not just grief, but a call to action. Michael's voice grew stronger. I'm retiring from basketball, yes, but I'm not retiring from showing up. I'm going to work full-time with these foundations, the Legacy Fund, and now the Roadside Safety Initiative. I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing what Elena does every day, making sure people know they're not alone. A reporter finally spoke up. Michael, are you saying Elena is the reason you're retiring? I'm saying Elena reminded me why I'm here. Basketball has given me everything: fame, fortune, a platform. But it's what I do with that platform that matters. And I want to use it to show up for people the way my father taught me to, the way Elena shows up for her patients every single day. Another reporter: Elena, what made you decide to start this foundation? Elena smiled. I've spent 2 years watching Michael try to help everyone who needs it. He personally responds to requests from the Legacy Fund. He drives people to hospitals. He shows up at bedsides. He's one person trying to be everywhere, and I realized we need more people like him. We need a system that supports showing up, that makes it safe and sustainable. That's what the Roadside Safety Initiative will do. How will it be funded? Michael answered, I'm making a substantial donation to start $20 million. But we're also accepting contributions from anyone who wants to be part of this. Anyone who believes that stopping for strangers matters. Anyone who wants to honor my father by making sure no one else dies alone when help is just a phone call away. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Questions about the foundations, about Michael's retirement plans, about his friendship with Elena. Through it all they stood side by side, Michael Jordan and Elena Vasquez, an unlikely partnership that had transformed both their lives. Finally, a young reporter in the back raised her hand. This question is for Elena. Do you consider yourself Michael's biggest advocate? Elena smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine. I consider myself the person who got to witness who he really is. Not Michael Jordan, the basketball player, but Mike, the man who stops for strangers, who keeps his promises, who shows up when it costs him something. And yes, I'm going to spend the rest of my life advocating for that kind of humanity. For the idea that greatness isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. She looked at Michael. You didn't just help me change a tire. You showed everyone what it looks like to live your values even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what I'm advocating for. That's what the foundation will advocate for. The belief that we're all responsible for each other, and showing up is how we prove it. The press conference concluded with Michael and Elena standing together while photographers captured the moment. But afterward, away from the cameras, Elena had one more thing to say. They stood in a quiet hallway, just the two of them, and Elena pulled out her phone. There's someone who wants to talk to you. She dialed, put it on speaker. A young voice answered. Mama. Hi, baby. Uncle Mike is here. Want to say hi? Uncle Mike. Iris's voice was bright with excitement. She was 10 now, her heart condition managed, her health stable thanks to medications the foundation had helped provide. Mama says you're not playing basketball anymore. That's right, kiddo. I'm going to be working with your mom instead. Helping people like she does. Good, Mama helps lots of people. She needs more helpers. Then, with the blunt honesty of children, Uncle Mike, are you going to marry my mama? Elena's face went bright red. Iris, but Michael laughed. A real, genuine laugh that felt like sunlight after rain. Your mama is one of my best friends, Iris, and friendship is forever. Marriage is just paperwork. That's what Mama says too. Okay, bye Uncle Mike. The call ended. Elena covered her face with her hands. I'm so sorry, she asks that constantly. She's got it in her head that every story needs a romantic ending. Does it bother you? The speculation. Elena lowered her hands. 2 years ago it would have. 2 years ago I was so afraid of being seen as someone who needed rescuing. But now, she shrugged. Now I know that needing help doesn't make you weak. Neither does accepting friendship from someone who happens to be famous. We're friends, that's enough. It's everything, Michael corrected gently. They walked together toward the exit, where Rosa was waiting with Iris. The little girl ran to Michael, and he scooped her up with the ease of long practice. "Abuela says we're going to celebrate," Iris announced, "because you're going to help more people now." "That's right. And Mama's foundation is going to help people too." "It is. Good." Iris leaned her head against his shoulder with complete trust. "Because helping people is the most important thing. That's what Mama says. And Mama is always right." Over Iris's head, Michael met Elena's eyes. She was crying again, but happy tears this time. "Thank you," she mouthed. Michael shook his head. "Thank you." Because Elena had given him something more valuable than any championship: purpose, direction, a reason to keep showing up that had nothing to do with fame or legacy and everything to do with being human. Later that evening, Michael stood in Elena's small apartment. The same apartment he'd first visited 2 years ago, though it was different now. The mold was gone, fixed by the foundation. The furniture was still modest but comfortable. Photos covered the walls. Iris at her school play, Rosa in her garden, and one new photo framed prominently on the mantel: Michael, Elena, and Iris at the hospital, taken the day Elena had received the Compassionate Care Award. They were eating Rosa's homemade empanadas, celebrating not Michael's retirement, but the beginning of something new. The Roadside Safety Initiative, a future built on showing up. Rosa raised her glass of wine, a toast. "To my daughter, who refused to give up even when everything was falling apart. To Michael, who stopped when others drove past. And to James Jordan, whose death taught his son how to live." They clinked glasses, cheap wine in mismatched cups, but it felt more meaningful than any championship celebration. "Mama," Iris said suddenly, "tell Uncle Mike about your dream." "Iris, no, tell him. It's important." Elena sighed but smiled. "I've been accepted into a nursing graduate program. I'm going to specialize in palliative care, become an expert in end-of-life support. The foundation is funding my education." Michael's face broke into a huge grin. "Elena, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to make sure I could handle it. School, work, Iris. It's a lot. But I realized something. I've been showing up for dying patients for years. Now I want to learn how to do it even better. How to train other nurses, how to build programs that actually support people at the end of life." "She's going to write a book someday," Rosa added proudly, "about what she's learned from her patients." "I don't know about a book." "You should," Michael said firmly. "Everything you've taught me came from sitting with dying people. Those lessons matter. Other people need to hear them." Elena looked at him thoughtfully. "Maybe, someday. Right now, I'm focused on the foundation, on school, on being Iris's mom. On showing up for the people who need me. Speaking of which," Michael said, "I have something for you." He pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Elena opened it, confused, then gasped. Inside was a check for $100,000, made out to Elena Vasquez. "Michael, I can't accept this. It's not a gift. It's your salary. You're going to be the executive director of the Roadside Safety Initiative, full-time, once you finish your nursing program. But in the meantime, this covers everything: tuition, living expenses, time off from the hospital to focus on school. It's not charity, it's payment for the work you've already done and will continue to do." Elena stared at the check, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll build this with me. Say we'll spend the next 20 years showing up for people who need help, honoring my father's memory, proving that kindness isn't weakness. Say yes, Elena." She looked at him, this man who'd stopped on a highway 2 years ago, and refused to drive away, who'd absorbed criticism and scandal and kept showing up anyway, who transformed his grief into action and his action into movement. Yes, Elena whispered. Yes to all of it. Iris cheered. Rosa cried. And Michael felt something he hadn't felt since his father died. Complete peace. This was what James Jordan had taught him. This was what mattered. Not championships or fame or wealth. Just showing up. Holding hands. Choosing people over everything else. 10 years later, the James Jordan Roadside Safety Initiative had helped over 50,000 families. They'd trained 5,000 volunteers in safe roadside assistance. They'd lobbied for better emergency call boxes on highways. They'd created a national hotline for stranded motorists. And Elena Vasquez, Dr. Elena Vasquez, now with her PhD in palliative care, had written that book. It was called Showing Up: Lessons from the Dying on How to Live. It became a New York Times bestseller, required reading in nursing programs across the country. Michael Jordan was no longer playing basketball, but he was more fulfilled than he'd ever been on the court. He spent his days working with the foundation, personally responding to calls for help, training volunteers, sharing his father's story and his own. And every year, on the anniversary of the day he'd stopped for a stranger with a flat tire, Michael drove to Mercy General Hospital. He met Elena in the parking lot, the same parking lot where he'd first picked her up after her double shift. They'd stand there for a moment, remembering how it all started. One choice, one flat tire, one person who stopped when others drove past. Then they'd go inside together and spend the day with hospice patients, holding hands, offering comfort, showing up for people in their final hours. Because they'd learned what really mattered. Not being perfect, not being famous, not even being great, just being present, being kind, being human. The incredible true story of how Michael Jordan chose kindness over fame, and how one flat tire created a friendship that changed thousands of lives. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We love seeing our community spread across the world. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that showing up for others is what really matters, do us a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel, because every time you do, you help spread this message of kindness to someone else who needs to hear it. Real greatness isn't about being perfect. It's about being there for people when they need you most. The video appearing on your screen right now has another incredible story about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Click it, watch it, and remember, you never know when your small act of kindness might change someone's entire life. Thanks for watching. Now go out there and show up for someone today.